I'll call this July 11th regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Harris Hall. Good morning, Mr. Mokryski.
Morning.
Any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Mokryski, seeing no adjustments to the agenda, we will move forward with the public comment section. I'll allow the audience, the folks filtering in right now, a few moments to sit down. Thank you for being here this morning. And I'll mention once we begin public testimony, please continue signing up. If you've not signed up yet, we will receive all testimony for people who've signed up. Ms. Mokryski will move into the public comment session of the board meeting. Today we'll allow 3 minutes per speaker, and I'd like to state a couple of things prior to that. You know, board meetings are on Tuesdays, and we convene at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays. Convenient for some folks, not so convenient for other people. People who have regular 9 to 5, so to speak, jobs during the week find it difficult to deliver public testimony in person to the Board of County Commissioners. Sometimes people are able to take time away from their jobs. But quite often, people end up hearing about it or talking about it or seeing it later and wishing to provide public testimony perhaps to the Board of County Commissioners. I'd like to say we do accept written public testimony anytime, and we do occasionally provide for public testimony at times other than 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. But our regular public testimony is at or around 9 a.m. on Tuesday, which once again is convenient for some people, inconvenient for others. Commissioner Lyken and I and Commissioner Williams all served on municipal governments before, and the City of Eugene testimony is taken on Mondays quite often, and City of Eugene regular meetings are at noon on Wednesdays. Not always convenient, but whether it's at noon on Wednesday, 9 on Tuesday, or 7:30 on Monday, some people are going to find it inconvenient. Written testimony is accepted at all times. So thank you. As I call your name, I'll call the next speaker and the speaker subsequent, the speaker on deck, so to speak, and step forward to the mic and please state your name and your address for the purpose of record. Today, I'm anticipating a large number of people signing up. Typically, we allow 30 minutes for public testimony. We will allow as much time as is necessary for everyone to have an opportunity to speak to the Board of County Commissioners today. Ms. Mokryski, before we move into public testimony, anything we need to add?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. Then at the conclusion of your testimony, you'll hear an alarm, which sometimes I'm able to switch off, and sometimes I count on Commissioner Bozievich to switch it off for me. That is in the record. So you'll hear an alarm. Please, at that time, take time to finish the sentence that you're, or the thought that you're in the middle of, and we'll continue from there. So the first person we have to sign up today is Deborah E. McGee, and followed by Patty Hine. Ms. McGee, please step to the mic and state your name and address for the purpose of record.
Good morning. My name is Deborah McGee. I've lived at 29755 Lusk Road for the last 30 years, but I'm a 35-year resident of Lane County. I want to start by saying I support the inclusivity policy, but I'm actually here today. I've been asked to come as a member of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, to let you know that the National NAACP has begun an environmental and climate justice program. While I appear and believe I am a person who is Caucasian, I want to say this is near and dear to my heart. I have a daughter who is East Indian, and I have a daughter who's African American. Climate change is one of the biggest civil rights issues of our times. Research shows that communities of color are most impacted by climate change, and for that reason, the just transition to clean energy must be led by communities of color so that they are not left out of that transition. You may be aware that both the City of Portland and Multnomah County, the most populated county in our state, passed resolutions to have 100% renewable energy by 2050. The NAACP of Portland helped implement and create oversight mechanisms to fulfill these goals. Historically, the NAACP, almost 100 years old, has national data that shows 68% of African Americans live within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. When Boardman closes in 2020, Oregon will no longer have a power plant, but still we know that low-income neighborhoods and communities of color suffer the greatest direct health, educational, economic consequences of pollution. Low-income African-American, Latinos, low-income multifamily, and renter households spend 8.8% of their incomes on electricity, almost 3 times the 2.9% average across other incomes. I have brought each of you copies of documents to explain the plans. Suffice it to say, with the rapid depletion of Earth's non-renewable resources and the fact that we now fully understand the harmful impact of fossil fuel energy on communities of color and low-income communities, the intention of the NAACP is to protect our communities from harmful energy products, at the same time providing equitable access to economic opportunities in energy efficiency and clean energy. NAACP leaders in the state of Oregon are committed to ensuring that community of color people are in the lead. I want to let you know that this is a coalition of Beyond Toxics, Calc, Portland, and Eugene 350 and the Sierra Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGee.
Shall I give these packets to this fellow?
You can place them right on the table right there. Thank you. Next is Patty Hine, followed by Phil Carrasco.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chairman Farr. My name is Patty Hine. My address is 29755 Lusk Road out in Southwest Eugene. I'm representing 350 Eugene this morning, a local grassroots climate protection organization which stands in solidarity with our Latinx brothers and sisters in the passage of this inclusivity language and policy. Our goal is, as Ms. McGee just indicated, to transition to a climate-safe community here where the opportunities of this happening transition is going to be afforded to those who are least responsible for the damage being caused by the fossil fuel industry and who should be put forefront in the leadership of transitioning and having some opportunities of a clean energy democracy. We just stand to make common cause with those who seek to protect the rights of all human beings, and that is why I am here today. And I speak personally from a position of privilege as a white woman in this country, which has a long history, I'm afraid, of inhumane practices and violence against immigrants and marginalized groups. And sorrily, far too often governmental bodies such as yours have given preferential treatment to those who have power of money and that stand behind their voice with that power of money. Those people don't have to fear the rising atmosphere of hate right now in our country. But immigrants, Muslims, communities of color, and the poor do not fully enjoy the freedom of expression that we do. And it is for those of us in positions of leadership, community, and in civil society to stand up against this repression. And we have, and you have, the power to do that with this policy. I urge you to delay no longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hine. Phil Carrasco, followed by Ellen Firstner.
Good morning, Board of County Commissioners. Since November 8th, it was imperative our community mobilize and lead the way in protecting our most underrepresented communities. As I researched possibilities for us as a county to fulfill our stated priorities, infrastructure, safe and healthy counties, vibrant communities, I realized that there was a lot of inward-facing work we needed to do. Nationally, there had been and continued to be a rash of incidents where folks acting as vigilantes attempt to enforce federal immigration law, despite not being a federal agent, or calling ICE on neighbors they suspect may be here without proper documentation. Let's be clear. When attempting to enforce federal immigration law when one is not a federal agent is an act of privilege that only a set of folks can use to continue the systemic oppression of those who are not to be considered Americans. Law and order is stated many times as the reason for barring entry or stay for these families with honorable work ethic and family values that any citizen of this country would be proud to have in their community. Although law and order is stated as the reason, our historical amnesia doesn't allow us to remember the deep racism in this country, making us oblivious to the types of policies we must draft, must adopt, and most importantly, must protect for an inclusive Lane County, a 21st century Lane County. After 7 months of long advocacy, support came from the vast community of Lane County allies, as you see before you, and at previous meetings, and leadership from warriors of color that are a permanent fixture in our community. Why was it imperative for us to do this? Well, when the law can't meet the deeper demands of justice, we must search for a way to create laws that get us there. Oregon took a humane step with Senate Bill 558 and House Bill 2726 that extends the Oregon Health Plan to all children residing in Oregon, regardless of status. But what good would that do if Lane County doesn't have a direct mandate from its Board of Commissioners to adopt policies and procedures where all residents feel confident they can use any and all county services? That's why I'm urging a yes vote on this board order, so that we may continue our business of governing our county in a manner consistent with our priorities: infrastructure, safe and healthy county, vibrant communities. Gracias to you and all who supported this.
Thank you, Mr. Carrasco. And I'll mention to all those in the audience a couple of things real quickly before we move along to Ms. Fersner. One thing is that at Board of County Commissioners meetings, we have people providing testimony, sometimes in opposition to each other's testimony, and we do not allow for any outward sign of support or dissent to the testimony being provided, whether physical or verbal. That includes hand waving and holding of signs. So please refrain from any support or dissent from the testimony being provided. And I'd also like to suggest, Mr. Carrasco in particular, based upon your read testimony just now, if you wish to submit your testimony as written testimony in addition to your read testimony, please do so. You can do that at the back desk or at the front desk. Thank you very much. Ms. Fersner, followed by Lon Otterby.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ellen Fersner. I live at 93995 Marcola Road in Marcola, right near the North County line. I am here speaking about the immigration issue. I am a so-called legal immigrant and have been for a long time. And I want to state my opinion about the so-called illegal immigrants. There's a lot of talk going on about that legal immigrants are opposed to illegal immigration, and I am totally for this order to add provisions to pertaining to foreign citizenship. I believe that we are a very small planet, and we all belong on this planet. I have no problem with people who come from unimaginable situations to this country to make a better life for themselves and their children, whether through legal or illegal means. Most of the people that come here do not necessarily come because they want to. It's because they have to, because they come from most unimaginable situations at home. I am a second-generation refugee and lucky enough now to be of legal status, but I know the background of my family, who was Asian. Also, I live in a rural community, and whereas Eugene is pretty progressive and Springfield also, rural communities are still pretty far behind the times, and I think it's very important for Lane County to stand up and voice support for all people and inclusivity. We have huge problems on this planet, and if we are to get along and to survive in the next few generations as a human race on this planet, we need to take some very drastic steps. And with global warming, mass migrations are already on the move, and people are moving to cooler climates, cooler temperatures. I know that the county commissioners can't solve the whole planetary problem, but this is one small step in the right direction. So I urge you to add to the provisions pertaining to foreign citizenship, the order, and vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fersner. Next is Lon Otterby, followed by Sandy Mann.
Chair Farr, Commissioners, thank you. Name's Lon Otterby. I'm 93995 Marcola Road up in the Mohawk River Valley. But today I'm speaking to you as chair of the Many Rivers Group of the Sierra Club, representing over 2,000 members and supporters in Lane County. The Many Rivers Group of the Sierra Club has been working for several years to protect Lane County's welcoming communities for all people. We applaud you, the Lane County Commissioners, and the Lane County Equity and Access Advisory Board for the splendid work done to amend the Lane County Manual Charter 60. We particularly appreciate the directions given to all county staff with this recommendation. We fully endorse and recommend those additions to the county policy and ask you to approve Alternative 1, to approve the adoption of the resolution and the order to amend the Lane County Manual Chapter 60 and to add provisions pertaining to foreign citizenship for this order to go into effect immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sandy Mann, followed by James Barber.
I'm a little shorter. Can you all hear me? Okay. My name's Sandy, or Sandra Mann to be formal. I live at 2120 West 15th Court, Eugene, Oregon. I'm addressing order number 17-07-11-01, amending the Lane Manual Chapter 60 to add the provision re the foreign citizenship. I'm glad to be here today. I've left messages for all of you except new Commissioner Williams in the past recently and haven't gotten any responses. So I have a captive audience today. I hope I'll be heard and listened to. I'm for the amendment. Most of us, including myself, came from an immigrant background. I have two great-great-grandparents who were Native Americans. One was part African American. All immigrants took the land away from the Native Americans for those huddled masses yearning to be free. That's all any citizen wants, I think. Emotional for me. This amendment, well written, ensures the safety of others in Lane County. It takes no money away from the county, no finances, and addresses the criminal element. It's very well written, I think. I urge you to put aside your political differences and persuasions and vote for human interest and vote for this amendment. That's why all of you are here today in this country, in this county. That's why all of us are here and allowed to stay. Let's afford that same right to others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is James Barber, followed by David Lawler, pardon me.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My address, 38676 Nature's Garden, District 5. I was here a few weeks ago speaking in support of the inclusivity order, and I'm hopeful today that you guys will pass it with a yes vote. I had asked you if you were listening, and Chair Farr assured me that you were, with the video being taken and the notes written down. We can show that we're listening in word and in deed, and a yes vote today shows that you are in fact listening. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Next is David Lawler, followed by Cindy Cocas.
So I'm here to speak on a different topic, actually, but I would like to say I stand in support of everyone who has spoken so far. My name is David Lawler, 522 Noop Lane, Santa Clara neighborhood. I'm here briefly to speak about illegal firework use in my neighborhood. Since about April, our neighborhood has experienced illegal firework use 4 to 5 nights a week, and sometimes during the day and morning as well. Not talking about bottle rockets or little firecrackers, but huge booming, window shaking fireworks. For a long time, we didn't know where they were coming from exactly, but about a month ago, I luckily ran into a neighbor who told me the location where the fireworks were happening. I was also told the person doing it had been doing it for years and was, quote, crazy and violent, and to be careful if we were to talk to him. I began calling the Sheriff's Department to report the illegal firework use, as did my neighbors. After calling, I don't know, maybe 10 times, the dispatcher told me that they would not send out a deputy and actually said they would never send out a deputy, and said that my best bet was called the Lands Management Division and some kind of compliance officer. I went through that rigmarole, talked to the compliance officer, who said, I don't know why they told you that. I can't do anything. It's the Sheriff's Department's responsibility. So I went yesterday and spoke to the Sheriff's Department here in this building. The woman was helpful, but told me, yeah, they'll never send anybody to do anything about it. And I said, well, if the house caught on fire, I'd suppose you send the fire department. She said, yeah. I said, if we got in a fist fight with the guy in the street, it's supposed to send the sheriff. She said, yeah. So I said, so is the policy, let's wait until something really bad happens until we address the situation. I'm not asking for a sting operation or anything special, just for maybe a deputy to go talk to the guy for 10 minutes and tell him to knock it off, or a county official to send him a letter that says this is illegal and you can't do it. Just something, but nothing seems unacceptable to me. I moved to Eugene in 2013, and I thought it was a city up and coming, and a tech city and a progressive city. And now I feel like I live in some dumpy trailer park neighborhood where bad behavior is okay, and disturbing the neighborhood is okay. This weekend, I went and got my dog a Xanax prescription because my dog freaks out every time this happens. I get to experience a 3-hour panic attack. Our neighbor's an Afghan war vet with PTSD. We have newborn babies in our neighborhood. Everyone's upset. I feel like we're kind of at a breaking point. This has been going on April, May, June, still going on now. Sunday morning at 9 a.m. The other day, 5 a.m. in the morning, there were fireworks in our neighborhood. So I'm just asking for help. I don't know what I need to do. Myself and a neighbor went over to this guy's house the other day to knock on his door just to finally talk to him, whether he was violent or not. Of course, the day we go over, he wasn't home, so we didn't get to talk to him. I don't know. I feel like I pay taxes, and I know the county doesn't pick up my garbage or give me, water or anything. So I figure some of the key services the county provides are like fire and police, or sheriff, I should say. So where's the sheriff? Where's the help? I don't quite get it. I don't want to move. I don't want to be soured on my neighborhood, but at this point, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. So thank you.
Thank you. Got it. I'm really not technologically hampered. Just sometimes the bell will keep going off, and I'm trying to turn it off. So I apologize for that. Next is David Lawler. Excuse me, that was David Lawler. Cindy Kokis, followed by Carol Seaton.
Hi, I'm Cindy Kokis. I am living at 65 West 30th Avenue, Eugene, and I've been here several decades. I represent today Churchwomen United of Lane County, and we have worked on the issues already presented. We totally affirm the words of Patty Hine and Deb McGee. We totally affirm the idea of looking at our thoughts about defining some people as other and not the same as worthy of what we are. We have heard from the United Way ALICE study, Asset Limited Income Challenged Employed, the working poor, that's what that's about, and are told by them that almost half of the population of Lane County is living on survival budgets. Clearly something is very wrong with how we've set up our systems. And while charity is a nice thought, we in Churchwomen United are working for justice. And the people who spoke to you so far have been working on justice themes. We have worked for decades now on the issue of people who do not have affordable housing. Decades ago, we opened our faith communities to families, just families, and were assured that the environment, the people we elected were working to find affordable housing. Affordable housing. If you make $10 an hour and you're only supposed to spend a quarter of your income on housing, figure out what those rents are supposed to be. but we have busied ourselves with projects for students and a variety of folks and haven't done this. Therefore, we have a huge population of homeless people, unhoused people. And I'm speaking today that you support the pilot project to have rest stops on Lane County land and have them in place by fall of 2017. These would be on church, business, and public property. This is a charity move, and we old women are getting tired of charity stuff. We have 300 plus people at my church having breakfast twice a month. They would rather breakfast at home. Let me tell you, we give a great breakfast, but wouldn't you rather wake up and eat at home? I think you would. So I'm just going to recall a parable. There was a judge who cared nothing for anybody, but this elderly woman, a widow, and you know what that meant in other cultures, who had nothing, kept coming and coming and coming. And he finally said, I can't stand hearing from her, give her what she wants. So I'm here today. Give us what we want.
Thank you. Next is Carol Seaton, followed by Bertha Zalvarez Alvados. Please correct me when you step forward. Ms. Seaton, thank you.
I live at West Fair Apartments. Before I lived there, I owned a 3-bedroom mobile home in a park in Thurston, and I was priced out of that. Fortunately, I eventually got into the Section 8 program, and I have been very happy at West Fair for at least 15 years. In that time, I have developed some really close friendships with the people there. We give each other rides to the hospital, and we help each other out in so many ways. And it feels, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to know that I can turn to somebody who will help me when I'm having trouble. We take care of the members who are losing their minds. And some of them have become quite senile, and they still are there. They're still taken care of just by neighbors. No extra cost to anybody. A couple of days ago, I got a letter from Section 8. The letter is to the new people who have bought the West Fair Apartments, explaining that their actions and decisions are not in compliance with Section 8 housing. We're being priced out of our housing. This is a very frightening situation. My life will be totally disrupted. I like to garden at a community garden plot, and I'm going to have to move away from that. I like to volunteer at Campbell Senior Center. I might be forced out of the city. I like to take care of my grandchildren who have enjoyed the Boys and Girls Club just a few blocks from where I live, and I give them transportation to and from. My life is falling apart. Section 8 is wonderful. It doesn't cover everybody who needs it. And right now, it's not enough. We have something happening here, and I think we can call it overcrowding. And I don't mean to push anybody out, but I want to say that we have too many people here, and those of us who can't afford to stay are being pushed out. And I hope you do something about camping. I might be living in my car. It's frightening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seaton. Next is, please state your name, is Berthan C. Zalvarez Avalos, and I apologize for the malpronunciation of your name. Thank you. Followed by Marissa Garissa Zarate.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Berta Catalina Zavala Avalos. It's quite a complicated. I didn't vote for that. I just born and I got a name, so I apologize. I go by Kathy, actually. It's easier and it's more common. I'm a resident, I can say, from Oak Ridge. I have been living there for 2 years. I enjoy to be there because it's a safe community where everybody, until now, I have seen that help each other. I am a single mom right now. I have an 18-year-old boy, and it's quite a frightening to hear everything that is happening around. I got told in a very hard way, and I got raised in a very hard way, that if you go by the truth, if you are honest, if you keep values, everything is going to be okay. That's not true. I have been facing trouble. I have been facing so many things that doesn't matter if you live or not in under values and under situations that are good, you still get stricken. And the situation is that there is so many things that are happening right now that might appear that are true, but the reality is that we all are made by choices, and we make our choices be reality. Right now I'm here because I received an email that is talking about inclusive resolution regarding immigration. I believe that's why I wrote that. But mainly what I believe is that it's a matter of a choice. It's a matter of living in a place where it provides safety for everyone. It provides opportunity to grow, to be better, to develop better, and also for teaching the children, the next generations. I got so many ideas through these years that I have been here. My son actually was born in 1999, and I saw many people. I faced good people, no good people, and I know that the U.S. is made of good people because we all are here together trying to work out together to make something great. And despite of everything that I have faced, I keep dreaming. I keep thinking that this can be better than what it is already. I believe in union. I believe in respect for each other, because the respect for other rights is peace. Everybody's a human. We're not machines. We're not people that can be moved around. We are people that can use our willing to do good things. And after all that, I believe that this world can live someday in peace. Maybe it will be something like a fairy tale, but maybe I want to live in a fairy tale, because that's what I thought that's why I thought that I will be bringing my boy to this world, to be part of something good, not part of something that later it will turn for somebody's choices in a wrong way. I have too much to say. I don't want to take the whole time. I should be at school right now. I keep trying to educate myself to learn more. When I got sponsored to be here, and now that fade away, and that's why I feel like I'm in trouble. I barely speak. I understood a lot because I grew up in a community where we receive a lot of tourists, but I wasn't able to read, write, or speak. Actually, I'm impressed that I'm here standing and I'm shaking, but I haven't fainted. So
Thank you for being here this morning,
thank you
Kathy,
so
and
much
thank you
for your
testimony.
time, and I hope you take your time and to consider this inclusive resolution. We're people that we just wanna be part of it, be part of the growing. community or the growing country and to make it stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Next is Marisa Garcia Zarate, and correct me if I'm incorrect, and followed by Joel Ebon. Joel is the last person I have signed on this sheet. If there's another sheet, can you please bring it forward, Ms. Ann?
Good morning. My name is Marisa Garcia, and it's Zarate, but I actually recently got married, and I'm still struggling on that one, so it's okay. But my address is 3617 Plum Tree Drive here in Eugene. I'm the director of Huerto de la Familia, the family garden here in Eugene. We serve the Latino community. We provide organic gardening opportunities. We provide plots where families can grow food and small business startup classes. I'm also a lawyer by trade. I was practicing law until I took this position a couple of years ago here in Oregon. I'm still licensed by the Oregon State Bar. And as a lawyer, I tend to think of worst case scenarios. I like to think of the worst case scenario, come up with a solution, and then I feel like we're ready for anything. When we are having conversations about this potential board measure, there was a lot of voicing that it wasn't necessary because we already had ORS 181A.820 on the books, that we already had a state law, that this was a duplication, it was unnecessary. But I like to think worst case scenarios, and worst case scenario is that there's a lot of outside interests who are looking to repeal that law and to target Oregon as a place to show that those policies can be trashed, that they'll get rid of them. So if that's our worst case scenario, then it benefits our community to have multiple levels of protection. And that's why we've been doing the work that we've done over the past 6 months or more. By having this board measure, we'll have a county level protection. We've already passed something similar in Eugene, and you see other counties and other cities, including Multnomah and Portland, passing similar measures. It's really important to have multiple layers of protection. As a citizen of Eugene and Lane County, I don't want my money wasted on enforcing federal immigration policy. I would prefer my money to go towards community services. There's people who have come up here today with housing problems and other issues that they would like to see resolved. I would prefer for those issues to be addressed than to waste our money enforcing laws that are going to break families apart. There's already an agency whose job it is to do that. Let them do their job. We don't need to spend our community money to support that. That's what this paper is saying. It's saying that we're not going to use our money to do federal government immigration job. We already have an agency in place for that. That's not our job as a community. Our job is to take care of our own, such as the woman who is here, housing problem. Let's focus on our priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Zarate. Next is Joel Ebon. One moment, please, Mr. Ebon. Mr. Ebon will be followed by Hugo Nicolas. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joel Eboa, and I'd like to start off by letting you know a little bit of who I am. I work for an organization called Causa Oregon as the coalition coordinator. Causa is Oregon's premier advocacy group for Latino immigrants. And my job is to track anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim bills and ballot measures here in the state of Oregon. I'm a lifetime resident of Lane County. I tell folks that I was born and raised in Eugene, but for a time, I lived in a very small community called Monroe, Oregon. And I have family right now that lives both in Monroe and in Junction City. But for all intents and purposes, all of my family lives here in Lane County, and I'm really proud of that. I'm also really proud to be the son of immigrants. My father came here in the 1980s in search of a better life, and found that here in Lane County, Oregon. And we have built roots here, as have many other families. So, through my high school career, then my college career, I shifted focus towards advocating for those who could not advocate for themselves, such as immigrants, which is why I'm standing before you here today, which is why I spend so much time and energy along with my brother Phil Carrasco, the sheriff, Greg Ragoff, a couple meetings with Steve, and I thank all of them for their leadership in trying to get to a place, and that place is right now. The time is right now. I thank you all for your leadership. I hope you will take the step in the right direction and be on the right side of history to pass this inclusivity ordinance. And I'd like to close by saying that there are many threats coming to our state. This is but the first step in the right direction. We have something called Initiative Petition 22 that is currently circulating and being, as of the Secretary of State right now, for the ballot title. And it would take away RS 181A, which prohibits police from working with federal immigration. They have until July 1st, 2018 to gather 88,134 signatures. If that comes to be, we will see a yes or no ballot measure to repeal that law, which has been in effect longer than I've been alive. That's 1987. So once again, thank you so much to the county staff, to Phil, and to all of you for making the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iboa. Next is Hugo Nicholas, followed by Alex Tomaselli. Hugo Nicholas. If Mr. Nicholas shows up, I'll give him an opportunity down the agenda. Alex Tomaselli, followed by Lisa M. Fragala.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alexandra Tomaselli, and I live in 1055 High Street, Eugene. I am here to ask you all to please pass the inclusivity order. I work with Puerto de la Familia. I teach the small business startup class for the Latinx people of Eugene and Springfield. And I can testify for the hard work these folks do and the asset that they are to the community. To give you an example, one of my students decided that, even though she was in my business class, she didn't want to start a business. She wanted to give food away. So she has a large plot in one of our community gardens where she's specifically growing food to give to folks in need. Her main focus group is actually U.S. war veterans. These are the people that I am interested in protecting. As for myself, I am an immigrant to this country. I moved here, or my mom moved me here when I was 9 years old. I didn't really have much of a choice. I didn't want to leave my toys and my grandparents and aunts and uncles and fun cousins behind. But I came here, I adjusted. I eventually became a citizen, which puts me in a position that is definitely more privileged than the families I work with and have learned to love. I became a citizen in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right at Independence Hall, right across from Liberty Bell. And yet, I still don't feel like I belong here. Some people say that I will never be an American because I was never born here. Never mind that I pledge my allegiance to the flag. Never mind that I have put so much time into being in this country. I have had nightmares about not having my passport on me, which is why I carry a copy in my wallet every day, everywhere I go, just in case somebody stops me because of the way I look. Somebody could stop me for looking Latina. Somebody could stop me for looking Muslim. I've gotten comments for both things. So I would really like to see this inclusivity order pass, not just for myself, but for the families I work with and for anybody else who might be affected. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Fragala, followed by Charlie Zanderos.
Good morning. My name's Lisa Fragala, and it's good to see you all again, Commissioners. I live at 84 West 19th in Eugene, and Commissioner Sorensen's area. I have enjoyed coming to these meetings for the last 7 months, but I am hoping that today we will see a strong vote of support for the inclusivity amendment or ordinance. I'm here expressing my support as an educator who has worked in Eugene in several schools for close to 20 years. I think you've heard me speak at some of these previous meetings that I also have the privilege of visiting schools all over Lane County in my work with the Oregon Education Association and the Eugene Education Association. This issue is significant to families all over Lane County. I know you're aware that our school districts in 4J, Bethel, and Springfield have all passed inclusivity or sanctuary ordinances, resolutions, and that there is strong support and significant need with our students and our families for Lane County to also take a stand for all of our brothers and sisters in Lane County. The last time I was here, several of you spoke quite, I thought, passionately about your own ancestry. Many of you have ancestors that were immigrants who experienced discrimination. I am a second generation Italian, Sicilian heritage daughter of immigrants. My family were actually Sicilian Arabs, which many people would technically consider being people of color in this day and age. But I have tremendous privilege, as do all of you, being a human being of white colored skin. And so I'm asking you, as my friend Carmen Urbina would say, in the skin that you're in, and with the privilege that affords you, to take a strong stance today as an ally and to strongly pass this inclusivity resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Charlie Zanderos, followed by Bernadette Bourassa.
I want to start today by saying that we are all sitting and standing on colonized indigenous land that was stolen from the Kalapuya people. My name is Charlie Landeros. I am a father of two. I'm a resident of Eugene, Oregon. I'm a veteran in two U.S. military wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I am an immigrant. Yet on my father's side, I still do have strong indigenous ties to this land. I'm here to support and advocate for the inclusivity policy. People of color have been fighting for our liberation and our humanity for far too long by ourselves. This morning, we're demanding that our representatives fight with us. We cannot wait. We cannot wait. We cannot wait any longer. As Dr. King once said, justice too long delayed becomes justice denied. How many more of our people need to be destroyed before we start seeing the change? 7 months is just far too long to wait, and we cannot wait anymore. As we speak, politicians are fighting for white supremacist policy. Our state protections are under attack, state protections that we've had for nearly 3 decades now. Make no mistake, me and our people are under attack, and we are fighting. Stand with us, fight for us, vote yes for inclusivity, vote yes for human rights. It is very important that we keep separation of powers here in Lane County. It is important that we stand up and fight for what we believe is right and not let power coalesce to oppress and destroy me and my people. I urge you to make the right choice today, be on the right side of history today. Vote for inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bernadette Bourassa, followed by Teresa Picado.
You have a lot of hard names today. I am Bernadette Bourassa. I live at 85409 Eagles Road in Lane County. And I'm here to ask you to vote for the inclusivity. I had other things I could have done today, but I felt that I would really regret if you guys voted the wrong way and I hadn't come down and put my 2 cents in. All of my great-grandparents were immigrants on both my mother and father's side, escaping poverty in Ireland and Germany. On my mom's side, the only story I know of my great-grandmother was that she didn't speak English, and she was so lonely for so many years until another German-speaking woman moved into the community. All these people are in the Midwest. My dad's grandparents came down from Quebec originally and kind of migrated west in Canada until they escaping persecution, and I don't really know what type that was, but a whole band of people, Catholic, French-speaking people, came down into South Dakota and plopped down in the middle of the prairie and started the town of Jefferson. There was nothing there but a river and some good farmland, and they made a thriving community there. And I have a hard time with the anti-immigration stuff these days, that human beings have always moved around on this planet, whether they were following herds or just looking for adventure, or they knew there was better water somewhere else, or the weather got bad, or whatever. We all migrate. That's the kind of creatures we are. And I think it's a real mean-spiritedness now that we all hide behind laws and some kind of reasoning that blah, blah, blah. You know, we have to be mean to a group of people because of this or because of that. And really, it's just meanness. Also, when I was young, I want to say that I oftentimes wish I had dark skin, and this goes back to a feeling I had as a real little girl, that I would rather be the person to be beat up than the bully doing the beating. And I don't like pain, and I go to great lengths to avoid it, but I also don't want to be a bully. And I don't want to be the one that's mean to someone else. I think that's just a horrible thing to have on your life story, that, I was mean, but I got mine. So that buzz maybe is for me. I just ask you to vote the right way, please.
Thank you, Ms. Bourassa. Teresa Picado, followed by Wayne Martin.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Picado. I am the daughter of Portuguese immigrants, and I live at 2191 Monroe Street in Eugene. I'm here this morning to share with you the story of my friend and her husband, who are undocumented. And because of circumstances in our country, their voices are silenced out of fear. I implore you to take a moral, ethical, and legal stand in solidarity with the immigrant neighbors of our county and vote yes on this inclusivity board order before you. The father of this close and hardworking family came here first in August 2000 from Michoacan, Mexico, in desperate search of work to sustain a family. He came with a group of immigrants, crossing a wilderness of forest and desert by foot for 3 days with very little food and water. The whole group made it, and ultimately he was able to connect with family living in Salem. He worked in an onion factory, and once he was settled with family, he sent for his wife. She came across, hidden in a car in extreme heat. She describes it as a most terrifying, difficult experience. Still, she and her husband were reunited, and they were grateful. Within months, she was pregnant with her first child, and by the time their daughter was born, they had earned enough money to secure their own apartment. They have lived in this community now, in this county, Lane County now, for 14 years. The father now works as a blue-collar laborer in wood products, and the mother works as a house cleaner and a homemaker. Because of this administration's targeting of immigrants, this family is wrought with fear, constantly nervous, sad, worried. They no longer feel calm and safe in the community they call home. Their daughter tells me that they are all under heavy stress. She, a girl of 16 years of age, bravely tells me that she tries to act normal and stay under the radar. She had this to say about her parents. I am so proud of my parents. They work hard and show their effort and dedication every day. They are my motivation. I love them so much, and I am so worried about their safety. And my friend wanted me to tell you this. We are good. We only want to work hard, contribute to our community, and create a better future for our children, the desire of all good parents. We only want to keep moving forward with all of you, our community. She thanked me over and over again for sharing her story. Please honor this family and so many other hardworking families and vote yes on this inclusivity board order. And I would also like to say that we are working on a project called We Are Neighbors. There is a photo exhibit on display at Pacific University now, and we are going to be producing a play in September called Now I Am Your Neighbor, and it is the story of Lane County immigrants living here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Picado. Wayne Martin, followed by Kay Dugood. Wayne Martin. Mr. Martin perhaps is left. Kay Dugood, please correct that if necessary.
That's my handwriting. I apologize. It's
followed by Stephen Deere, excuse me.
Yeah,
Please.
Kay Osgood. I'm from Cresswell. Having lived in Eugene for 17 years, I retired, moved to Cresswell, and now I have time to devote to a lot of things that had just been gnawing at me. Within the last 10 years or so, I've made efforts on behalf of immigration and related status. I went to a No Mas Muertes campground on the Sonoran Desert for a few days where we carried gallons of water just to leave at trail sites for people who were trying to immigrate. I was involved happily but unsuccessfully in trying to help driver's license, not driver's license, but ID through the DMV be available to people regardless of status. There have just been so many points of being beaten down, not personally, but as far as my belief system. I know a lot of people feel that way after the last election. There's so much happening that's so disheartening. And if this commission could vote for the order for inclusivity, it would be a mighty step up. It would be a little tiny step, but it would be so heartening to people who care a great deal about these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. The final person signed up is Stephen Deere.
Good morning. My name is Steve Deere. I live at 88865 Lois Lane in Elmira. And I also am grateful to be able to serve on the County Access and Equity Advisory Board, but I'm only here speaking for myself and my wife, Dr. Janet Deere. I feel a real humble sense of appreciation for the work of those who drafted this resolution, and especially for those who came and spoke today, and the inclusivity amendment. And so my thanks and commendations to them who've worked on it. I'm speaking here because I'm convinced that more of my neighbors in Elmira and Veneta support this amendment than you might think. And I speak as an engaged resident of that community. You'd be hard-pressed to find more American flags in one city block than in front of the shopping center in Veneta on 126 on the July 4th holiday. And, you know, when I see those, I think there's so much reflected there. But this resolution reflects the best of the values that our country was founded on. And that's all I want to say. Please support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deere. This concludes the list of persons signed up to speak today. Would anyone else in the room today wish to address the Board of County Commissioners? I see none, and I'll ask if Hugo Nicolas is here or Wayne Martin is here. I see that they are not at this point. I will close the public comment period and ask commissioners for remonstrances and or other issues. Commissioners? Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody for coming to testify. And I'll have to agree with Steve Deere that many people in Elmira support this amendment as one of his neighbors in Elmira. I'm aware of that. So I want to wait and address some of that when we get to that next item on the board. I just want to address real quickly Mr. Lawler and Ms. Seaton. Carol, I have sent your concern real quick to Jacob Fox at the Housing Authority, and he is looking into the situation at Fair Oaks. And I also sent a note, Mr. Lawler left, unfortunately, to the sheriff asking him to look into the situation at illegal fireworks in Santa Clara. So I'll follow up on both of those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Further remonstrances, other issues? Commissioner Sorensen.
I wanted to talk about two things today. First would be the public comment that people gave about the board resolution that we're going to be taking up later today. I just was very impressed with all this heartfelt testimony from a variety of perspectives on the importance of moving ahead with adopting this board order. And sometimes you can't really tell whether an individual act is going to change the outcome of something. You don't really know. And I think someone even said, I just couldn't not come today because I wouldn't know if not coming wouldn't affect things. And I think that is a difficult problem in our country. We don't really know all the time whether our own individual action is going to result in something positive. But I do know that today and in previous days when we've heard from people and they've told their story and they've told why they believe this is an important thing, that the community, that Lane County pass something that is the government's Democratic government representing the 350, 60, 70,000 people that live in this community, and that they would pass this law, this rule, this board order. I just think it's really valuable that you've come, and I really appreciate it. I also wanted to talk about something else. Most people in this room are not aware of this, but Neil Miller has been the Lane County Law Librarian for a number of years, and it is sad to say, but as a Midwest person, the fine weather that we have here has been not enough to keep him from going back to the Midwest. So Neil Miller is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. He is a graduate of the University of Oregon Law School. His wife, Andrea, is a medical social worker at Sacred Heart Medical Center. Their daughter, Freya, 3 years old, Lane County resident her whole life, will be returning with her parents. And, you know, I'm taking this time to celebrate Neil in part because most of us, fortunately, don't have to go to the Lane County Library, Law Library, but a lot of people do, and they can't afford lawyers. And they need to be greeted by people that know what they're talking about and are willing to help people try to navigate a pretty complex system of law. And he's been there helping people for a number of years now. And I think he's really transformed it from being a place where a few lawyers and accountants would gather to being really a community resource where the public is served, and more people can't afford lawyers, and so they really have to work with the people that can give them research materials and help them through a complex process. So I'm sorry that Neil is returning to the Midwest. I'm glad for his family that they're going to have 4 grandparents, all retired, to help care for the wonderful granddaughter they have, and I'm losing one of my constituents, and 3 of my constituents actually. So it's sad for me too.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. And like about 90% of all people born in Lane County, Freya was born in Springfield. Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Upon that note.
Almost Sorensen again. That'd be twice in the last 2 meetings. Pete and I are twins. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all of you taking the time to come out this morning. I'll address the board order as it comes up in the topic. But one of the things I heard this morning was pretty interesting. It was about where we are as far as incomes and this type of thing in Lane County. I'd like to point out something and just offer some statistics to you. In 1980, did you know that Lane County was the 2nd largest county in the state, behind Multnomah? And in fact, we were larger than Washington County. Think about that for a second. But I'm also going to point out that for some reason, Eugene in particular, but also Lane County, rejected the opportunity to diversify our way of living here and kept on moving forward into what we call the timber dependent county. Washington County, on the other hand, embraced it. And I'm going to provide some statistics to you right now why, and 36 years later, what the difference is. Washington County is median household income. Median household income is double Lane County. Double Lane County. We rejected Hewlett-Packard. We rejected Rohr's Industry. We rejected high tech to come into Lane County back in the late 70s and early 80s. Washington County embraced it. Today, Washington County has grown 60% larger than what it was in 1980. You ready for this? The median, so think about this, median net worth is approaching $1 million. That could have been Lane County if we would have just embraced economic diversity and embraced the high-tech industry. Washington County embraced it. That's where it went, and that's why Washington County has become the economic engine of the state of Oregon, and Lane County has lagged. And I will tell you, we're going to continue to do what we can, but once a reputation sticks, it's very, very challenging to overcome that. And we're going to continue to do what we can. I know we tried in Springfield, but a city can't do it by itself, especially within the county. We need all of our partners in order to move things forward. So I just wanted to offer that up and let you know that, thank God, if you look in downtown Eugene, there is a budding high-tech industry that's beginning to happen. I'm very grateful it's being embraced because this is the future. Smaller businesses, 10 employees, 20 employees, but making a nice median income that produces and gives back to the community. This is the future of Lane County, and that's why I'm very excited the fact that the Knights chose to give that enormous gift to the University of Oregon. It's not just about the Knight Science Center. This is about startups. This is about opportunities that will propel throughout, not just Lane County, but throughout the entire state of Oregon. So I'm just giving you pure statistics and facts, no emotion given to it, of what can happen and what can transpire in an area if another area rejects it and another area embraces it. And by the way, Clackamas County was quite a bit smaller than Lane County as well. It's now the 3rd largest county in the state. Same reason. The high-tech industry has completely transformed Clackamas County to what it is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Like. And Ms. Kokis earlier was mentioning that 50% of the people in Lane County are living in survival mode.
That's exactly
in most
right.
part because of the lack of good-paying jobs in Lane County. Thank you. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have little to add other than my thanks to those of you who have taken time out of your day to come and voice your concerns with the Board of Commissioners and indeed with all of the citizens of Lane County in Oregon. So thank you for your testimony and your concern. And
thank you, Commissioner Williams. You know, I was impressed by the discussion that we had today, impressed by some of the quotes that were made today. And I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail, but Kati, who I believe has left, and I'm saying Kati because a long name was difficult for me to pronounce. Avalos, I believe is Kati's last name. Very poignant testimony that she was able to provide. And you may have noticed that I let her complete her testimony. She spoke for 6 or maybe 8 minutes, very eloquently. She said that she didn't speak English very well. I thought she spoke English very, very well indeed. And one thing that she said, one quote that I wrote down of hers, that really struck me, because I believe this to be the truth. I know that the United States is made of good people. That's a quote by Kati. And I believe in respect. She also said that. I know the United States is made of good people. I know that to be the case. This Board of County Commissioners is chaired by an immigrant. You probably all know that. Maybe some of you all in the room that didn't know that. I immigrated from England, but I'm only 8% English. My family is predominantly Irish, who fled the potato famine to Scotland in the 1800s. And so my by way of Ireland, Scotland, England to the United States to find what I believe are good people. And I believe the action that we're going to be discussing in the board today, if you stay around for that, you'll find that the United States is made of good people. And this is a step in the right direction. Thank you very much for being here to provide testimony this morning. It's been long. I'd actually hoped for more people to be here, but you did pretty well. Thank you for being here. We'll move along with the balance of the meeting. I will mention that typically at this point we would go into our consent calendar, but because out of respect for the people who are here and so you can be here to witness the discussion that we have regarding the Order 17711-01, we'll do that before the consent calendar today. Prior to that, however, Mr. Mokrahajski, do we have any emergency business?
No.
We have none today. Then we will move directly into Order 17-7-1101 in the matter of amending Lane Manual Chapter 60 to add provisions pertaining to foreign citizenship. Today, Mr. Mokrahajski will bring forward Greg Rickoff, Mo Young, and perhaps introduce the chair of the board, chair of the commission board. It's a board, right?
Advisory board.
Advisory board. But I will also add that the complete order as written, including additional information, can be looked at online right now. If you go to today's agenda, click View Items, you can see every single thing that is contained in the board package today. Mr. Mokrahajski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'll just introduce the individuals at the table with me. Mo Young, our Equity and Access Coordinator. Of course, Corey Rodley is a member of our Equity and Access Advisory Board. She also is a member of the Inclusivity Task Force that we formed to look at this issue, so she can provide you, I think, some perspective as a community member on both of those groups, and Greg Rickoff, our Director of Operations. So myself, Mo, and Greg will each share some comments, and then we'd welcome Corey. You'd either ask questions of Corey or any insights that Corey may have in that process. A lot of individuals have been involved in this, and if you'd like to ask Mr. Chair for folks to raise their hand, that's fine, but both between who are here and there are a number of folks who are not here who participated. On the county side, the folks at the table, Sheriff Trapp, D.A. Perlow, Assessor Coles, Steve Dingle, our county counsel, Alicia Hayes, our Director of Health and Human Services, Sarah Chinsky, who now is in county council and was our management analyst in county administration, as well as individuals who testified here today, members of our Equity and Access Advisory Board, and other individuals in the community that participated. So a lot of folks have participated in this. I wanted to just touch on two issues before I turn it over for additional comments from Greg and Mo. First, on process and timing, there have been some comments and concerns raised previously about the amount of time that it's taken to come to this. So I just wanted to reflect for the board and for everyone here and watching, and sort of make a general comment about, my experience here in Lane County is that we are an organization that is decisive, and I think on all the challenging issues that we faced, we have a record
of being decisive on issues, but we also are deliberative. And so this board, I think, has led, and our leadership team has led with an approach of saying we're going to listen to individuals, we're going to deliberate around issues, and we're going to forge solutions that are in the best interest and common good of the community. So briefly, on October 27, 2015, the board unanimously approved a plan that set forth a direction for equity and access and inclusion in Lane County. Previously, we had a human rights advisory body that was abolished. We had staff committed to that that were no longer in place, and the board said a few years ago we want to have a greater focus on equity and access in the organization. So,
excuse me, Mr. Mokowiecki, were you saying board at this point? You're talking about the
Board of Commissioners.
The Board of Commissioners.
I'm saying yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And
the Board of Commissioners in October 27, 2015 said we want to have a stronger focus on equity and access in Lane County. And in developing and approving unanimously that plan, there was a 5-point plan. Part of that plan that the Board of Commissioners approved was to create a new Equity and Access Advisory Board. Thank you for the clarification. A lot of boards and committees that we have going here. But that was
sometimes
really
they're called boards, sometimes committees, sometimes other names. But in this case, we have two boards that are presenting today. So the Board of Commissioners and the Equity and Access Advisory Board. Thank you.
Thank you. And so my point here is just to say that process really set forth the board's commitment to re-engage actively and partner with the community on issues of equity and access. In September of 2016, we hired Mo Young as our Equity and Access Coordinator. That position is new and was created in that budget, and we've continued our commitment for that. In November of 2016, the board issued a joint statement along with various municipal community partners across Lane County, a unity statement, and then in December 6th of 2016, the board adopted a board order and resolution reaffirming Lane County's values of integrity, respect, openness, accountability, public engagement, pursuit of excellence, diversity, stewardship, and empathy. And then on December 8th, 2016, community members made a request of Lane County to look at adopting a policy that addresses foreign citizenship and how we provide services to all individuals in our community. On January 24th, the Board of Commissioners requested that the Equity and Access Advisory Board discuss that ORS 181A and this request from the community. What was the date of the first Equity and Access Advisory Board meeting?
February 1st.
February 1st was the first meeting. So the end of January, you asked for the Equity and Access Board to look at this issue. February 1st was the actual first time that group, we appointed individuals and that group met. Then in March, we created a task force, which sort of served as a subcommittee of that advisory board, specifically to look at this issue of inclusivity. And we engaged some other community partners on both sides of this issue. We felt like it was important to hear from individuals who were advocates for an inclusion board order of some kind and folks who had concerns about the risk of loss of federal funds and other issues. So in March, that group was formed. In I believe it was late June, the task force took a vote, unanimously approved, and then forwarded to the Equity and Access Board. And on July 5th, the Equity and Access Board heard this issue, took action, and asked the administrator, because they're advising the administrator, to bring it forward to the board. So that's what's before you now. The second issue that I want to touch on now is just to get into the issue itself and just frame this, and then Greg and Mo will talk a little bit more about the details of the board order that's in front of you. But this, I would just acknowledge here that this has been a politically charged and divisive issue. I think that's fair to say. Our task, as we've taken this on, as we viewed it, has been to forge a solution that balances access to services for all of our residents without putting funding at the state or federal level at risk to provide those services. So this, this has been a balancing act. And I think, what we really have tried to do is recognize that in local government, our role is not to deal with immigration policy. That's just not, we're not charged with that responsibility. The Equity and Access Board understands that. The task force that did this work understands that it's not our job and our responsibility to deal with immigration policy. It is our job to provide services to local residents and families. And so the extent to which our residents feel as though they can't access those services or feel vulnerable in the process of accessing those services, that is a local issue. So that is where the foundation of our efforts has really been, is making sure that the services that we're responsible to provide to families and individuals in our community are accessible to those families and individuals in our community. There's been a desire from individuals involved in this process that this be a public process, that this not be something that can be changed by appointed individuals, that this really be something that the Board of Commissioners, the elected representatives of the community, take action on. So that's why it's come in the form that it has. A lot of discussion about resolution or board order or ordinance. You have a board order in front of you that can only be adopted and changed by the Board of Commissioners. So we want to make sure that our county services are accessible to all with confidence. And then I want to say that we expect that all of our employees are truthful at all times with local, state, and federal officials. But we also recognize that county employees are not required to serve as federal immigration agents. That's not their job to do. And so again, this has been a balancing act between acknowledging our need as public officials to be honest and truthful at all times, but also understanding where our responsibilities lie. So we've taken great care in the development of the language here to make sure that it does not put us in conflict with current state or federal laws and thereby risk accessing state and federal funds. I think we need to continue to monitor changes in state and federal policy that could potentially impact that dynamic, but as it sits today, we believe that this language does not put at risk our ability to continue to access state and federal funds. And we also, as is stated in here, this policy will remain consistent with federal and state laws and regulations, and those will continue to be followed and obeyed. So our goal going forward, if the board chooses to adopt this board order, is going to be to make sure that we make this policy clear and understandable to all employees, that we have corresponding policies and procedures and language that makes all of this understandable to our employees so that it can be implemented in the most accurate and effective ways possible. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rickoff, who's going to make some additional comments, and then Mo Young, who will follow up with some more detail on the meetings and the process that we went through.
Thank you, Ms. Mokrajewski.
Chair Farr, members of the Commission, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for those who are with us today for both their patience and their tenacity to get us to this point. This order does not change county practice of directing employees to do the job they were hired to do. It optimizes the opportunity for employees to be effective in achieving the core elements of their job. If county employees, if deputies, nurses, and doctors are perceived to be immigrant enforcement officers, they run the risk of failing to achieve their jobs. If we want victims to report and give evidence against crimes, if we want everyone to be responsible for stopping the spread of communicable diseases, we need to do what we can do to assure individuals that we are focused on the work at hand. We need all residents of Lane County to feel confident in talking to us and working with us. The order you're asked to consider today takes the current state law, ORS 181A.820, and places it in the Lane Manual. It additionally requires all county employees to comply with the directions law enforcement personnel must already adhere to. Chief law enforcement officers, sheriffs, chiefs have supported the state law for decades. Individuals of vastly different political positions have supported the law quite simply because it works. It allows law enforcement to be effective in working with the communities they serve. We are aware that we live in volatile times when it comes to federal and state legal changes. We may need to revisit this. There's a national conversation, and there are forces driven far outside of Lane County that might impact what we can and cannot do when it comes to immigration law. We give you our assurance that we will stay attentive to that, and as needed, we will revisit the issue as we see state and federal changes that need to be addressed. But any further action will be public action. To the best of our ability and knowledge, this is not in conflict with state or federal laws as they are currently written. And let me reassure you that we won't stand in the way of state and federal laws and their enforcement. We have HB 3464 in the state that has been passed by both the House and the Senate. It is yet to be signed by the governor. We don't know what those implications are. Federal HR 3003 has been passed by the House. It has moved on to the Senate. There's still a lot of work to be done before that becomes the law. We don't know what those impacts are, but we will be attending to them. Please note that the Equity and Access Advisory Board heard the task force proposal at their July 5th meeting. The board had a conversation and came up with some concerns that they wanted to express, but they did not want this to hold the order back. So at this point, it is merely for your consideration. We were asked to forward that we perhaps add the language to the board order similar to that found in Multnomah County's first whereas resolution. That was actually discussed at the task force level, and the current concern was that that could be polarizing. As you know, when we set up this task force, it was important to you all and important to us that the full range of political perspectives serve on that task force. You have legislation that has been vetted and was unanimously passed forward. That whereas was considered and not included as part of that conversation. There was a question about whether contracts and contractors of the county would be included in the language about agency monies, equipment, and personnel. And it is our consideration that this would include contractors. There was a strong desire that the education components of this order include community partners and organizations to participate as partners in that education. That is absolutely a given. It was certainly the intention of the task force and the strong recommendation of the Education and Access Board. We were also asked to include language in the APM that helps employees to understand that confidential information is confidential, and that when they're speaking to one another, even in a private, collegial matter, that they not expose or share information that they shouldn't otherwise do. Simply reminding Lane County employees that they're professionals and they need to act professionally. And that too is an assurance that we will see, that we see already within the APM. So with those concerns forwarded by Equity and Access Advisory Board, the group believed this legislation has merit. This order needed to move forward, and it was the unanimous vote of Equity and Access that the order be forwarded to you now.
Say that again. That was a unanimous vote of the...
That was a unanimous vote of Equity and Access Advisory Board.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
Good morning, Chair Farr. Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to take just a minute to introduce you to some other folks who have served on both the task force and the Equity and Access Advisory Board. So Corey Rodley is here. She served on both, as Steve said. In the audience, Theodora Coe-Thompson and Steve Deere, who are both members of the Equity and Access Advisory Board, are here. And Phil Carrasco and Jolie Boa, who both served on the task force, are here. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention also. So I'm just going to do a really quick overview. I think Mr. Mokrajewski and Mr. Rickoff did a really nice job outlining all of the things that we needed to keep in mind and kind of the process of it. So let's see. So the task force met. We kept in mind all of the requests and concerns that Mr. Mokrajewski outlined, and what we came up with was the board order that you see in front of you. Very much of the language is taken directly from ORS 181A.820. We've expanded it to include all county employees and not simply law enforcement. It includes both external and internal education. So our intention and the task force ask of us is that we both educate county employees and also the greater community as to what exactly this means, what we will and won't do when it comes to working with federal immigration. And it also includes a requirement that these details be worked out more in depth over the next few months. So this is not the end of it. This is really the beginning of it. Yeah, so that's what's in front of you.
Excellent. And I'd like to hear that again, not the end of it, merely the beginning of it, that as changes are necessary, then we will keep track and keep abreast of what's happening at the national level, at the state level, whatever it may be. Ms. Rodley, would you like to add anything?
I think all I would like to say, I'm Corey Rodley. I live in Springfield, and I work in Junction City as the director of Junction City Local Aid. And I also lived in Eugene for years and years. So I feel like looking at this from a county perspective is one of the things that I'm able to bring to it. And I think that I cannot stress enough that the process was, while we were trying to work as quickly and diligently as possible, it was also very inclusive of a variety of ideas. So that was one of the great things that came out of the committee process, is that we really did have different viewpoints at the table, and we really did look at this from law enforcement and look at this from community and look at this from legal and look at this from people who had different viewpoints. And so I think that the strength of it is that it really does feel like a county process.
Thank you. And I would also like to point out that the Board of County Commissioners, we have 5 elected officials. Also, we have other county employees who are elected officials who also serve as department heads, who are involved deeply in this process. Mike Coles, the county assessor, is with us today. District Attorney Patty Perlow is not with us, but was involved in the process. And Lane County Sheriff Byron Trapp was involved in the process. All elected officials, all department heads for the county, and all are in approval of us moving forward with the recommendation that the task force through the advisory board has provided. Then as we move forward, I'd like to say that, you know, when we formed this task force, as an advisory board to the county administrator, when we formed that, we planned on it doing years of work and being around for a long time to come, providing input. What we hadn't planned on was such a difficult and arduous task as your first task. Within minutes, it seemed, of the board being created, we had a very difficult task, and one that potentially could have been almost terminally divisive in the community, one that took a great deal of input, and one that really took deliberation beyond any that a new board should be asked to do. However, you did it, and you came up with what is a very well-written, very well-conceived document that we are considering today, which is Board Order 0711-01. And once again, that is, in the full text of that is available online as people are watching us sitting here. And we'll have a chance to discuss the board's feelings toward that at this point in time. I'll open it to discussion from the board. Commissioner Lycan. I'm sorry, I thought you were looking at me. No. Commissioner Sorensen.
I just wanted to ask a question about the interaction between the proposal that's being discussed at the state level to get rid of this state law that this board order is based on. What happens if that legislation passed? We'd still have our board order in place. In other words, it doesn't say, it's not referencing a specific state statute, it's just giving the language from the existing state statute. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. And then the other thing is, we had been talking about maybe making this an ordinance as opposed to a board order. could you go over the, maybe you could address this, Corey. Do you recall any discussion of that, or this was something that was brought up at public comment here several times?
And I recall all sorts of discussion about that. But I might need some help perhaps from the county administrator or perhaps from someone else to help me. We kind of looked at the sort of stages of how we could make this, kind of put this into policy. And the decision, maybe you can share the decision why we went with that. Yeah, because we really did hash it out quite a bit.
Yeah, we talked about the 4 different levels of policies in Lane County. You have the Lane County Charter that can only be amended by the voters. That is our version of a constitution for the county, if you will. You have the next is down as the Lane County Code, which can only be amended by an ordinance, which requires 2 readings by the board, and in order to be changed would require 2 readings and a vote by the board. The county code changed via ordinance is really external facing. So we use the example of Tobacco 21 when the board raised the age of tobacco sales from 18 to 21. You put that local law into the county code because it then is enforceable for external entities in the community. In this case, we really were talking about the ways in which we deliver services to the community. So this was about a policy for our employees, not for the community. It was directing the actions of county officials, not enforcing behaviors with actions in the community. So the next layer down is the Lane Manual, which can be changed by a board order, which is what you have in front of you. That requires a board vote. 1 vote of the board and can be changed, but it can only be changed by a vote of the board. The next layer down is the Administrative Procedures Manual. You've heard it called the APM, which can be changed by the county administrator. I think the feeling on that is that, to leave it to an appointed official to have a policy that could be changed really at any point is not strong enough. And so it's coming in the form of a board order because that requires a public process. It's a vote of the board, can only be changed by a vote of the board, and it will live in the Lane Manual, which becomes a board policy that impacts the actions of county officials. Does that help answer the question, Commissioner?
Yeah, and it also is clear that if at the end of today's proceedings we decide that we want to repeal that board order, then we can repeal the board order later today. So in other words, that makes it fairly, on the positive side, flexible. On the negative side, it means that at any meeting of the Board of Commissioners that's been publicly noticed, we can repeal this board order.
Or amend.
Yeah, or amend it, right. So, good. Okay. Well, thank you. That really answers my questions.
Mr. Rickoff, did you have a response? Did Commissioner Sorensen cover that?
That's fine.
Thank you for Commissioner Sorensen for bringing up the question regarding the levels of action the board can take. That was made very clear. Thank you, Mr. Mokrajewski. Commissioners. Commissioner Bozovich? Oh, Commissioner Lycan. Okay. You weren't looking at me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple questions. And so on the, when Eugene passed her ordinance, I remember that D.A. Perlow actually, before the board, said she had some concerns about the Eugene ordinance. But on this particular, what we're proposing here, though, she has given her consent and she has endorsed this. Is this correct?
Correct.
And along with Sheriff Trapp.
Correct.
So with it being a Lane Manual, so have we had any requests from the bargaining units to look at this and actually ask to have any of the, what we bargained, to have anything opened up to bring this part of their, the bargaining that we've already done, or units that we're in the process of bargaining with, have they brought this before the, have they brought this up to the bargaining, to our bargaining unit as we're working with the unions at this point in time?
To my knowledge, Mr. Chair, no. But we do anticipate and expect that if the board approves this board order and it goes into policy, that we will need to meet with each of the 7 bargaining units and discuss the impacts as is required in order to have this policy be enforceable in terms of disciplinary action, it would require us to bargain the impacts with each of our 7 bargaining units. We discussed that with the task force and with the Equity and Access Advisory Board. We've talked with our labor relations staff and county council about that, and so that will take time, as the board certainly understands 7 different bargaining units, and having some discussions about the enforcement capabilities of that, and then how this local policy squares with state and federal laws around whistleblowing laws and those kinds of things is going to be a process that we'll need to go through.
Chair Farr and Commissioner Lyken, if I could just add a little bit more detail to that. Typically what would happen here is this is a manual change. My expectation is that with some other issues, for example, the tobacco-free campus, the units have said that they want to see the full detail of the policy before they sit down and bargain it. So it's my expectation that they are not going to, at this point, ask to demand to bargain it, but when the specific enforcement policies are rolled out is when they see the full policy, they'll sit down and want to bargain it.
That's really the questions I had, and I appreciate those answers. And I think as most folks know, if you look at my record, I've been very, very consistent over the years. As you know, I voted no on Tobacco 21, not because I don't support it, but because I felt like that it was more important to be statewide. Well, as we know, the legislature the House just passed, so it's going to the governor to be signed. So Tobacco 21 will be a statewide. I don't care to create islands. On this particular language, when I read it, I mean, this to me, basically what it's doing is codifying. That's already in state law. I do appreciate, Mr. Mokhaisky, that you explaining the financial impacts, especially as we know, counties in particular, and Lane County, as we know, relies tremendously on federal funding. And so I think that your answer there was very satisfactory to me. And but I do like the idea of just monitoring. I think it makes sense. No matter who was in office, I think it would make sense anyway that you monitor just to see where things are, because things change up. And the federal government requires different grant processes over the years. And let's not forget, Tiger Grant is pretty new when it comes to transportation. That's fairly recent. And so these are some things. So I think monitoring and just staying up with it. But I thank you for the answers. I'm completely satisfied. I want to say to the advisory committee, great work. And for doing the due diligence, I think it actually makes more sense to make sure we slow the process down and do it right, instead of rushing it through to create a mess. And because you know what, lawyers make plenty of money, and we don't need to include hourly rates that much more, as long as you do it right. So I appreciate the answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyken. Further discussion? Commissioner Bozevich.
Thank you. And first I want to say thank you to the Equity and Access Board and the Inclusivity Task Group. We just created you guys, and the first thing we hand you is probably one of the biggest, most divisive issues that was in front of our community at the time, and you guys handled it excellently. You held meetings that were open to the public to view. You were deliberative. You came to consensus, and believe me, there was quite a diversity on that task group when it came to reaching consensus. Included somebody that's the current chair of the local Republican Party. So, to reach consensus in that diversity of opinions, I think you guys have found a really good board order and lane manual change that is easy for us to support as a board. The work you guys did was great. For those that felt like 7 months took too long, we received several hundred people signing a petition back in 2012 concerned about our inability to control invasive species and how it was impacting agriculture in Lane County. We formed a task group, studied it, looked at it, because part of what it is we weren't controlling it well with our current non-chemical means. We still haven't completed that process. In fact, we have something coming up next week about approving the actual chemicals through the Board of Health that are Public Health Advisory Committee has reviewed and approved for use against some of these invasive species in particular. So that's been 4 years working through that process. You know, we had the public come to us after a large event in one of our parks and, you know, demand some action from the board. We formed a task group then. It took over a year to come out with the large events task force as far as what we're doing in our parks and have guidelines for the county. 7 months is actually pretty darn fast, especially for a brand new committee. You know, folks that kind of were a little bit impatient, it's how we work though. It's how this board has worked consistently in the past. Citizens have come to us with an issue in public comment through petitions and other ways. We refer it to a group of citizens to study and make recommendations to the board. They take in more public comment, study the issue, get it back to the board, and the board then makes a decision based on that public input. That's kind of been the Lane County way. And this is another example of the Lane County way. Citizens came to us concerned about this. And I understand the concerns. And you know, we are a local government providing local services. And if our citizens are afraid to come to us, it really affects our ability to really protect people, whether it's in our communicable disease control and people failing to come to us and report, you know, events and us being able to control a possible outbreak of a communicable disease, or it's whether people that are subject to domestic violence and victims of domestic violence being able to report that, or people that witness child abuse or elder abuse being able to report that. You know, people have to feel safe coming to Lane County, and I think this board order hopefully will make people feel safe and will be able to continue to protect our population, you know, regardless of citizenship. So I want to thank the committee. I think you guys have done an excellent job.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair Farr. I have nothing further to add.
And I just have a couple of quick things, and then I'm going to take an unprecedented action. But first, the quick things. Back on February 1st, Ms. Rodley, your board first met, and I was there at that meeting. And as I normally do, I wrote down quotes and something you said that day. My hope is that we would not need to be here. Well, you did need to be there, and you were there. Thank you for being there, and thank you for taking this strong action and leading this the strong work that has been done. Another quote that day is from Karen Sachs, also on the board. We have a lot of great people saying a lot of great things. Now is the time for action. That came to pass in very short order. Action has been taken by this board, and you've made a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So now I'm going to do something that's a little bit unprecedented that we don't normally do here, and I'm going to relinquish the gavel. I'm the chair of the board. We take turns being chair. It's my turn. So I'm going to relinquish the gavel to the vice chair and ask that the vice chair call on me first after relinquishing the gavel. Subsequent to a vote on the order that we will be voting on soon, the gavel will be returned to me. So at this point, I relinquish the gavel to the vice chair.
Thank you. So I will call on now Commissioner Farr. Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair Bozovich. Many community members and groups have expressed fears regarding their ability to safely access local services. Board approval of this order and the amendment of Lane Manual Chapter 60 would clarify and establish expectations for employees and members of the public regarding communication and information sharing regarding citizenship status consistent with state and federal laws. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move passage of Order 17-7-11-01 in the matter of amending Lane Manual Chapter 60 to add provision pertaining to foreign citizenship.
Is there a second?
You want to do it second again?
It's been moved by Commissioner Farr, seconded by Commissioner Sorensen. Discussion to the motion. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. We'll now return to regular business. Thank you for your presence this morning, and stay around. It gets more exciting from here. With the consent calendar. Then give the room a moment to clear, Ms. Smoker-Heisky, before we move forward with the consent calendar. Thank you. Thanks. I almost lost it. Board, we have before us a consent calendar of July 11, 2017. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed here below. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Bozievich.
I'll move approval of the July 11, 2017 consent calendar.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Bozievich, seconded by Commissioner Lycan. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Moving along to Public Works, Ms. Smoker-Heisky, we have a work session on potential action on ordinance number PA 1340.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Pardon.
Can I propose an alternative?
Oh, that is a 11 o'clock time, sir.
It is, and we just ran by Public Works, and they're okay. Mr. Dingle says he can get through 8A and B before 11 o'clock if you want to take that out of order.
Then we'll step to item 8 and move back to item 7, which may be a little bit after the time certain 11. So County Council, item A is announcements. Mr. Dingle.
No, I do have one announcement, excuse me. You asked some time ago for a board assignment on whether or not the legislature would fund community corrections at the level that would trigger the opt-out provision. They funded it at an adequate level. I see Commissioner Bozievich nodding agreement. So opting out of and sending those services back to the state is not an option. So I'm just reporting back and closing out that item.
Good news indeed. Thank you.
Item 8B is the first reading and setting a second reading on the marijuana tax. And just very briefly, this is a house cleaning matter. You'll recall the board adopted that tax. We, by statute, entered into an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, with the State Department of Revenue to collect and distribute that tax. And part of the IGA pointed out that we did not have a penalty for late payments and interest. And so DOR wanted us to go back, amend our tax to include and incorporate by reference those statutory provisions that authorize, a penalty for late payment and interest. And that's what this is. So that when we get done with this, and we'll enter into the IGA, and we'll be able to collect interest and late payments on unpaid taxes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dingle. Then we have before us the first reading and setting the second reading on public hearing on Ordinance 1704 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 4 to conform with Department of Revenue practices and the requirements of the Intergovernmental Agreement for Local Marijuana Tax Collection. We need a motion. Commissioner Bozievich.
So I'll move approval of the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing of Ordinance 1704 for August 1st, 2017.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Bozievich, seconded by Commissioner Lycan. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Second reading will be August 1st, 2017. Do we need a time certain on that?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Jones asked if you would not have a time certain. I think we probably have a full agenda, so we want some flexibility there.
So with no time certain, August 1st, 2017. Thank you, Mr. Dingle.
With that, I'll turn the table over to Public Works.
And thank you to Public Works and guests for allowing for that. We're still in front of 11 o'clock. So if you don't mind moving your agenda item up a little bit. Then, Board, we have before us a work session on potential action on Ordinance PA 1340 in the matter of co-adopting the City of Eugene 2035 Transportation System Plan, etc. Mr. Smoker-Heisky.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Taylor and Mr. Interfeld here.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Commissioners, I'm Becky Taylor, Senior Transportation Planner for Lane County, and with me is City of Eugene staff, Rob Interfeld. This is your third reading and potential action on ordinance number PA 1340 in the matter of co-adopting the City of Eugene's Transportation System Plan. Lane County co-adopts the TSPs of all 12 incorporated cities within Lane County and Lane County's co-adoption applies to the area between the incorporated city limits and the urban growth boundary. The TSP before you reflects recommendations made by the Lane County Planning Commission, which recommended board approval. And the board previously had a work session on this item on January 24th to learn more about the components of the Eugene TSP, including a list of projects on Lane County roads, such as Aubrey Lane, Beacon Drive, Bailey Hill, Fox Hollow, Beaver Hunsaker, County Farm, Gillum, Howard, Hyacinth, Lake, North Park, River Road, Scenic, Spring Creek, and Wilkes Drive. And the Eugene TSP adoption package includes the ODOT Beltline Facility Plan. ODOT staff has indicated that they expect this local adoption by Eugene and Lane County before they proceed to the next step in the process, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, which will include a rigorous analysis of project impacts and result in a determination as to whether one or more of the improvement options can be constructed. The board held 2 joint public hearings with the Eugene City Council on March 6th and March 17th. And at the close of the hearing, the board requested additional information, which is included in today's agenda packet as attachment 1. And Eugene staff is here to answer any additional questions the board may have. Following the public hearings, the Eugene City Council had a work session on May 22nd and adopted the TSP on June 26th. And those meeting materials are also included in today's agenda packet as attachments 2 and 3. And Eugene staff is here to provide any additional explanation the board may request. The ordinances for Eugene's adoption and Lane County's co-adoption are different. Lane County will not be co-adopting Eugene's street classification map, Eugene's code amendments, Ordinance 2052-8, and repeal of the Central Area Transportation. Lane County's co-adopting Ordinance PA 1340 was provided in the March 6th agenda packet, and it hasn't changed since. There are 3 alternative motions concerning this ordinance, which are provided on page 1 of the agenda, and staff recommends the first option, which is to approve the ordinance for co-adoption of Eugene's TSP. That concludes my staff presentation, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I'm going to have a couple of questions. Mr. Innerfeld, anything you'd like to add at this point?
I mean, I can give you, I was planning to just give a brief overview.
Please.
Plan. The draft Eugene 2035 Transportation System Plan provides a 20-year blueprint for the city of Eugene's transportation system and serves as the transportation element of the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan. The TSP was developed based on extensive stakeholder input, analyses of our existing transportation system, and relevant adopted plans, and coordination with planning processes that are underway. The plan provides for a balanced multimodal transportation system that prioritizes safety, sustainability, economic vitality, and community livability. The plan supports the provision of complete transportation networks that serve travelers of all ages, abilities, and incomes. Key elements of the TSP include a section that includes goals, policies, and actions, a section that includes the proposed mobility standards on both city and state facilities, a section that includes proposed capital projects, a section on transportation funding and implementation that demonstrates how the TSP balances projected funding sources and capital project costs over a 20-year period. My understanding is that community involvement was something that the board was interested in, so I just want to speak to that briefly. There, besides visiting with a lot of organizations, because we believe that you often need to go to where the people are at, we convened a group called the Transportation Community Resource Group, sort of a rotating group of about 80 people that opted in. We'd have anywhere from 20 to 50 people at each of our meetings over several years, and they met with city staff and staff from partner agencies and our consultant team, and we covered a very wide range of issues related to the TSP. And then there were then after all the public involvement we did, there was the Planning Commission process, and after the Planning Commission joint public hearing, I also met with a few neighborhood associations that had submitted very thoughtful public comments, and in particular, there were organizations that cover areas that are under your purview. So I met with the Northeast Neighbors and with the River Road, a joint transportation committee of the River Road and Santa Clara neighborhood associations. And so we were able to refine, come to common ground on a lot of their comments, and then some of their suggested changes were then incorporated into the revised TSP that was recommended for adoption by the two planning commissions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Interfeld. And as I said, I do have a series of questions. First, I'll open up to the board for questions, comments on the City of Eugene's TSP. Commissioner Lakin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Rob, and I decided not to look it up because you were here, so I thought I'd just ask you the questions. So, since you were first came before the board, a couple things have changed and transpired. First of all, we have what I call the $5 million planning money for the courthouse. So you have the courthouse, City of Eugene, the swap, the potential that's going to happen here, and along with the potential that will be happening with the Night Science campus, and then basically downtown high tech. Do you view there's plenty of flexibility from your perspective on how to potentially incorporate? Because one of the things that's talked about with the land swap has this creation, going back to the creation of this old, what we call the public square, and where I'm envisioning where much more foot traffic, bicycle, so bike pedestrian friendly in this area. Do you feel that there's plenty of flexibility in this plan to incorporate the potential redesign that could happen in this area?
Absolutely. There's definitely flexibility in the plan. There's also planning processes underway that address some of those areas. So we actually have a study underway looking at some potential changes to the street network between here and the eWeb district. Mm-hmm. And there's also a Franklin Boulevard design refinement that's about to get underway, and we're coordinating closely with the University of Oregon regarding the night campus.
That's great, because I really think over the next decade, there's a potential where this whole area can be completely transformed into a different look than what we have. And I thought, well, if Rob's going to be here, I'm not going to go try to look it up all over the place in here, because the term flexibility is going to be key moving forward. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
That's pretty exciting. Thank you, Commissioner Lakin. Thank you, Rob. Any further discussion? Then I have a couple of questions. I'm ready to move forward with this. We've been working on this for a long, long time. I was a city councilor for 10 years, starting in 1995, and I think we were working on it then.
That was transplant.
Okay, that was transplant. Thank you. It all sort of runs together because it's all the same roads and it's all the same people driving on them. It's all the same businesses trying to operate on them. And it's all the same people whose kids are trying to find houses in Eugene after they graduate from high school who are having much difficulty doing so. A lot of my discussion is regarding how do we provide housing. And Ms. Koch was here this morning. You weren't here for her testimony, but there's a huge anxiety in our community regarding affordable housing. Now, land use and transportation is only one element of making housing affordable. Zoning, different things, a lot of things go into it. But really, whatever we do, that we have to meet that anxiety that Ms. Koch this morning spoke about, that she said that 50% of the people in Lane County are living on the edge of being able to survive, basically is what she said. And a large part of that is because of housing. And, you know, I stated over and over again that just in the last few weeks we've had someplace around 3,000 kids graduate from high schools in the city of Eugene. And you know, I had 3 kids graduate from high schools in Eugene. None of them, well, until recently, none of them lived in Eugene, couldn't find a place to live. My elder son finally did find a place to live in Eugene, is paying $1,400 a month for an apartment because he could not find a house in Eugene. So all of the discussion has to be on how do we find ways to get people to be able to afford houses in Eugene. A part of that is better paying jobs. Commissioner Lakin talked earlier about how we forsook the high tech 20 or so years ago, and Washington County didn't. Consequently, they have double our median income, which gives people much greater opportunities to own homes. So what we have to do in our transportation plans, in our Envision Eugene, and the things that we do as a county is make sure that we're making it easy for the kids who graduate. I'm going to use those as the lightning rod on this one. The kids who graduate from high school to stay here, live close to their parents, raise their kids close to their grandparents, and if that's their choice. It's not everybody's choice. So I have a couple of questions. And once again, Mr. Interfeld, you've worked really hard on this, and you and I have talked about this several times since I believe it was last February when we first looked at that as the Board of Commissioners. Not first began discussing it. But a couple of questions. First is regarding existing land that is currently already zoned for residential, whether it be R1, R2, whatever it may be, without downgrading the land, without changing the zoning of the land, changing it from medium density to low density, or changing it from high density to medium or low, without changing, does this transportation plan serve the residential property that is currently zoned residential and not developed residential? And for instance, I'll give you for instance to make it a little easier, the area south of Highway 126 and west of Beltline Road, which is zoned for residential.
So that area has been rezoned as part of the Envision Eugene process.
Explain that. Explain rezone.
So Terry Harding is here from our planning division. If it would be okay, I could have her come up and address it.
So this was zoned for, okay.
More authoritatively than I could, so.
Thank you. So this is an area that was zoned for residential and has been rezoned in order to make the zoning fit the existing transportation plan. Is that correct? No. Okay, good.
I'll restate the question as I understand it, and then you tell me if I'm right.
Okay.
It's a question about the Crow Road area.
Yes.
That was redesignated by your action in 2014. Okay. So south of West 11th, there's a large area that had been planned for medium density for over 20 years. In the course of analyzing where we could find additional capacity for housing inside the urban growth boundary, the hunt for efficiency measures, this area was suggested to be switched to low density to increase the supply for low density housing. There's a lot more to the story for why it was originally planned for medium density, which has to do with the area that eventually became the West Eugene Wetlands Plan area, had been planned for a lot of industrial jobs. Yeah. So it didn't make sense anymore to plan for so much housing on the edge of the UGB when there wasn't to be a large job center nearby. So in 2014, a little over 200 acres was changed from medium density to low density designation. Zoning actually wasn't changed for most of it.
Perfect. That's a great answer, and that satisfies my question. Thank you very much. So we're still within the numbers that we are required to demonstrate a 20-year supply of residential land inside the existing urban growth boundary.
Correct. Or
adjust the urban growth boundary accordingly. Excellent. Then thank you, Ms. Harding. And I got to tell you, Ms. Harding already told me that, so I knew the answer. So, thank you. Not as eloquently as she just stated it. The second question that I have is regarding this is a boiling issue, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you'd spoken with the Northeast neighbors and with the River Road neighbors, because I have two issues: one, River Road neighbors; one, Northeast neighbors. And one is, does the transportation plan cover parking?
There are some policies that speak to parking in a transportation plan, but the transportation plan does not affect the city's parking regulations.
So the parking regulations are independent of the transportation plan?
Right, they're covered under the land use code.
Under the land use code. Okay. So then we plan transportation facilities irregardless of what parking exists to support whatever development is going to be allowed.
You know, there's a few areas where parking and transportation intersect. One of them is when we design streets. Mm-hmm. The question is, should the street have parking on it or not? Typically, local streets and collector streets have parking on them, and arterial streets do not.
Yeah, county streets typically do not either, because we have usually ditches. Doesn't facilitate parking very well.
Right, and often the right-of-way or the perceived right-of-way doesn't accommodate that.
Very specifically then, and this is one that we're working on right now, is there's the ECHO development. It's a multi-family housing development on River Road, which allows one parking space per apartment and allows for some on-street parking. But it doesn't just allows for one parking space per apartment. And in that, some of those apartments have 3 bedrooms. Allows one parking space. So on site, they only have one parking space per apartment. So what happens is that the people who need to find parking there, closer than from me to Miss Brotherton, they drive that short distance and park on county streets. county streets in front of residences, sometimes in their driveways, sometimes on their lawns. And it's all because the parking wasn't adequate to it wasn't an adequate supply for the development that took place with one single parking spot. Now, you say that transportation plan and parking is independent. So if what I'm talking about right now, Rob, if you have no input on that at all, then you can just defer to land use, and we'll take the issue up there. But I want you all to know that it's a huge issue when the city allows for big apartment complexes and allows for one parking space adjacent to county land in places where people should be able to drive, should be able to get into their driveways. They're not able to do it.
Now, there is one of the actions in the TSP. Now, our Planning Commission felt strongly about this, so they made it an action, whereas everything else that had been in the TSP under the action category was potential actions. They created 3 actions, or it might have been 3 actions. One was require all developments and employers of a certain size and type to prepare, implement, and monitor transportation demand management plans. And this could be something that could potentially be covered under that. So the idea would be that we would work with developers to both, in terms of how they design their development, but also how do they, especially if it's a rental development where they have tenants that churn over time, is how do they communicate with their tenants about their transportation options? So the Echo development is adjacent to River Road, which has relatively frequent bus service, which hopefully will become more frequent over time. And we're looking at that as part of the moving ahead process. So there's, people have, overall our city policies support people driving less, people owning fewer cars. So there's, that's the kind of opportunity we would have to look at how can we work with this developer to encourage their tenants to own fewer cars. And in fact, right now we have a program called Smart Trips that's targeting the River Road neighborhood and encouraging people to drive less. So we could certainly talk with you on the side about how could we follow up on that particular development as part of our Smart Trips program that's underway right now.
That's perfect, and that's a good response based upon the transportation plan. But I'll tell you that Mr. Mokrahysky spent time in this neighborhood, the sheriff spent time in this neighborhood, the DA spent time in this neighborhood talking to the people who live there about our inability, the county's inability to satisfy the problems that are caused by this city approved development. In fact, Mr. Rickoff and I will be working late into the night tomorrow, working with the residents in that area to say, well, here's what we're not going to be able to do. We need the city to help us with this. We need something from the city. And so far, we've gotten nothing from the city on it. So we do need to move forward with that. And Mr. Innerfeld, thank you for the transportation part of that, and thank you for saying it's not the transportation it's not a part of the transportation plan, that it is something else that we need to look at. But we need to look at it with a great urgency.
And like I said, there may be additional policies in here that speak to parking, but the transportation plan itself is not the parking regulation for the city.
I know that there's been some discussion of it, IGA, and there's something from your offices that say the IGA is not possible. We need more on that. The second, and thank you very much. I'm still prepared to move forward with the ordinance today. The second is Envision Eugene. We're going through the final motions in the first stage of adopting Envision Eugene recommendations. We're going to be having a joint meeting. We're going to be having our meeting next week. The city's already passed their recommendations, and my question is regarding. Now, I'm going to get to that one in just a moment. Another one is also regarding transportation in the northeast neighbors. We've covered the River Road one. Northeast neighbors, Gillum Road, for instance, the one I'm thinking about right now. The transportation plan, how does it cover Gillum Road? There's a stretch of Gillum Road in between where the city has approved large developments of multifamily residences and some single-family residences. Between those residences and Crest Elementary, it's Crescent Elementary School is right there. Right now it's a county road. The ditches, on the sides of the road, is the Gillum Road. And it's really an unsafe situation that's been exacerbated by the fact that more people are going to be living out there and therefore more traffic traveling on that highway. So how does the transportation plan cover that?
So, I mean, the plan calls for upgrading the section of Gillum Road between Ayers Road and Ashbury Drive to neighborhood collector standards, and that would include sidewalks, curb and gutter, stormwater facilities. It does, north of there, it calls for a sidewalk on one side of the street, where it's a local street. From a practical perspective, also the city generally requires developers to build to a half-street standard when they're building development on unimproved collector streets. So there's some development along that section of Gillum Road that's either under construction or in the pipeline right now, and you'll start to see those developers building the streets to half-street standards. A similar example is on North Park Avenue between Howard and Maxwell. There was a developer who did that on the west side of the street in recent history, also on a county road.
Or on Barger Drive, out toward the end toward Green Hill Road, where one side is in the city.
So we've also talked with county staff about working on a project to bring the remaining segments of Gillum that are not being affected by development up to urban standards through a grant. So that's something that we're actively engaged on. North of there, though, we don't have a project.
North of Ayers.
Pipeline, north of Ashbury. So between Ayers and Ashbury, where it's a local county road. We don't have, like, there is a project in the TSP to add a sidewalk, but we don't have a project, in the pipeline that we're actively engaged on. Now, my understanding is you can access, for people that live in the new development west of Gillum, there's a neighborhood street network that they can use that has sidewalks on it, and if not, it's much lower volume streets that they can use then to access the section of Gillum Road between Ashbury and Ayers.
So when I talk with Bob Sigmund and others later on today, tonight, tomorrow, I'll say that no, there's no plan for the city or anybody else to improve Gillum Road. It's going to look like that until the future, sometime in the future.
Okay, so just to restate, there are developers that are building half-street improvements, which include sidewalks, on the sections of Gillum Road between Ayers and Ashbury that are either under development now or in the pipeline, so where they've submitted plans to the city. And we're actively engaged with city and county staff are actively engaged on developing a capital project to fill in the remainder sections of Gillum Road between Ashbury and Ayers that are not going to be brought up to urban standards through that development. For this, so that, in fact, that project was moved onto from an urban standards kind of upon development list in the TSP to our 20-year project list as a result of our conversations with the Northeast neighbors. So to show that that was a higher priority for the city.
Excellent.
And then we added, I believe as a part of that, we also added the section, although it might have already been in the plan, of a sidewalk project on Gillum north of Ashbury.
And
there's no, but that
for me and people
the
listening,
20-year project
where's
list.
Ashbury in relationship to Crescent Elementary?
You mean Gillum Elementary?
Which is,
that,
excuse me, that is Gillum Elementary. No, Gillum Elementary.
Cal Young?
There it is. Okay, thank you.
Is that helpful?
Okay, it is helpful, but it still leaves a large section of Gillum without development, without sidewalks, and beyond that there is new city development. So
right. So that's a county road. That is not a collector street. So our plan doesn't speak to local streets. In this case, we did add a sidewalk project to that street, recognizing the community interest, even though we typically don't include local street sidewalk projects in our TSP.
Okay.
So from Ashbury to, I believe, to Mirror Pond Way.
Okay, excellent. Then we'll be taking a look. We'll be walking the area sometime in the next week or so and taking a look at that. And
Sure, and
I may have further questions, but once again, it's not going to inhibit my moving forward with the ordinance today.
If you'd like city staff to be there as part of the walk around, let us know.
I would love that. Thank you very much. And I just want to be able to answer questions accurately based upon the questions that are asked. And if the answers are bad, if the answers are what people don't want to hear, as long as it's the true answer, that's what we need to provide. Then I will go to the last question regarding the Clear Lake Overlay Zone, which is a part of the Envision Eugene, which is the industrial lands that are going to be added. Let's see, for everybody knows where Jerry's is, right? So this is all land that is out beyond Jerry's and along Clear Lake Road. And does a transportation plan include consideration for local businesses that have already thrived and are providing employment for large numbers of people? Does it make certain that they aren't going to be negatively impacted by the transportation plan as it pertains to Envision Eugene's expansion. I'm going to be really specific about this. We have Theona Drive, which is an improved road, and it is on the northern border of Jerry's Home Improvement Center, the main store. And currently there's a truck wrecking yard on one side, and there's Jerry's Home Improvement Center on the other, and that's the main northbound exit from the Jerry's parking lot. It's the only northbound exit from the Jerry's parking lot. Jerry's employs 300 to 400 people. I'm not sure exactly how many at this point in time. And obviously it's a homegrown business. It's employee owned. I'm not one of the employees, so I'm not one of the owners. So does it take into account does the transportation plan take into account Envision Eugene, and does it pay attention to the needs of local businesses?
So the transportation plan that you are considering for adoption addresses Envision Eugene within our existing urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
We will be bringing you an amendment to, after Envision Eugene is adopted with an urban growth boundary expansion, we'll then bring you in either as part of that adoption or subsequent to that, you will have an opportunity to adopt an amended TSP that addresses the expansion areas.
Perfect. All good. That is I have one more question in 7 parts. No, that's it. No more questions. Then that has satisfied the questions that I've had kind of swirling around. And Ms. Harding, thank you for taking time on a number of occasions to answer my questions. And thanks for being here. So any further discussion to the ordinance before us? Then Commissioner Bozievich, we need to read the ordinance.
Yes, but before I get to that, I have a couple quick questions because Commissioner Farr didn't quite touch on a couple things. Okay. So the TSP includes the Beltline Delta facilities plan, which is great. It's one of the major reasons why I'm going to support it, because it's critical for all of Lane County. It's not just critical for Eugene. But that, includes the collector bridge between Green Acres and Division Avenue, basically. That's going to draw even more traffic to the intersection of Green Acres and North Delta. We heard lots of testimony of folks that live on North Delta concerned about the existing issues they have there with traffic safety, particularly in trying to make left-hand turns out of their developments that are dead-end developments. The only way they can go is North Delta. And there's a proposal for huge housing development up in the conversion of the golf course up there. So there's kind of several things that are going to change the traffic levels on North Delta. Yet there's no proposed projects to deal with North Delta or safety. Is there any plan maybe when we adopt Envision Eugene, and there's also some issues about Envision Eugene may be appealed because there's some potential industrial lands that could have been brought in that are on North Delta also, so it gets even more complicated. What is the future of North Delta, and is it included in the TSP, or is there, as we adopt Envision Eugene, you come back with those revisions about Clear Lake? Is that going to be thought of at that time?
There's no specific project related to North Delta Highway north of Green Acres in the TSP. That said, there's a traffic impact analysis that's currently under review by the city, and my understanding is that it does address some of the issues that have been raised by the residents. And our approach to city staff is we'd like to engage the residents of I think it's Lakeview Estates. Is that correct?
There's 2 of them.
Okay.
There's Delta something, I can't remember and then there's Lakeview Estates.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'd like to engage them in looking at how we can address some of their concerns, but we generally wait until the TIA process is completed because we don't want to interfere with that process. And then if that process doesn't address the safety issues from both the perspective of city staff and the residents, we'll try to work with them to see if there's some other solutions that we can come up with. But that's more of those are more operational issues that wouldn't rise to the level of being projects in the TSP.
Yeah. As we're working towards 0 deaths in our transportation system plan, and I forget what's the correct term for the way the city adopted it. It's not the same term.
Vision 0, right?
Vision 0, yeah. that is a real concern of mine because both of those developments are senior developments. So you have drivers with slower reaction times trying to thread the needle, basically, and also that come almost to a complete stop to make a right turn into their developments. So it's a potential for some very serious accidents, and then also people getting impatient and doing illegal passing. Have a situation very similar on River Road and First, which becomes First Avenue into Junction City, with another manufactured home park that's one way in, one way out there, where there's actually been near fatalities with people passing, somebody trying to make the left turn in or waiting for somebody to make the right turn in or something, or somebody turning in or out there. So I don't want to have another manufactured housing facility where I'm seeing regular serious injury accidents because of impatient driver behavior or just miscalculations on traffic speed.
Right. So like just as an example, some of the things we've talked about are like having a turn pocket that they could, if they're making a left onto North Delta, so that it's a two-stage maneuver. Because my understanding is right now there is no turn pocket there. Or another, this is just a concept, but having a roundabout at the intersection with Ayers Road, so then someone could make a right turn out of there and go around the roundabout rather than making a left. So there's some different options that we're going to take a look at. I can't make any commitment, but
yeah, we need to teach people how to use a refuge lane though, because Theona Drive, that exit of Jerry's, I drive that section 99 home almost every day. In the last 2 months, I've seen 4 accidents there, 2 of them serious injury.
Then you've seen 4 of the 12.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen 4, but and part of that is people turn out in that refuge lane and either use it as an accel lane or don't understand it's a refuge lane and try an immediate merge and don't stop. So that's a whole other issue about educating people about how to use a refuge lane. They're not an accel lane. And they're there for you to stop and then merge. So we dealt with North Delta. I have a lot of questions about approving a plan that has dashes in it for future determination in that West Eugene area on West 11th. That bothers me to a considerable degree, but it's not enough for me to vote no on the project. I'm not real happy with the level of service assumptions in the project. But I want to real quick get back to the idea of 1 space per apartment and somehow or another the tie-in between transportation planning and city code. I don't know, they may be separate items, but they do impact each other. With today's housing crunch, the idea that you're going to have apartments occupied by a single driver is almost insane because the current rents, when you're talking about young people, aren't affordable on a single income. So you're seeing households, that are basically 2 or 3 unrelated people sharing an apartment because that's the only way they can afford it. That's 2 or 3 vehicles. And the idea that LTD on that 55 line, which you can barely get standing room on at rush hour because it's probably the most crowded line in all of Eugene. And it always consistently runs late because it's also the longest loop they have. If you talk to LTD about it, the idea that's somehow or another going to, transplant those other 2 vehicles that three guys sharing a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever it is, 3 gals, whatever, that's just not going to happen. So the idea that somehow or other the code allows a single space per apartment is absolutely insane and is just a problem looking to happen. And then this whole idea of, that gets to the question that was answered in writing about, electric vehicles, sort of. But even since I asked that question about electric vehicles, Volvo has said they're not going to produce gasoline only or diesel only vehicles 2019, 2 years away. Now, Subaru announces the same thing. That'll be most of the vehicles in Eugene. Sorry. Yeah. But that's the direction things are going. And so if it's concerned with, emissions, et cetera, that we're trying to change people's habits, which the reason people have personal vehicles is their schedule doesn't always fit mass transit. Weather doesn't always support alternative, active transportation for most people. Some people are mobility limited and don't have the ability to utilize active transportation. We need to somehow or another tie this idea of adequate parking in with transportation plan or something, or have a further discussion in the future, because you've created a nightmare for a neighborhood. The city of Eugene has in improving that apartment complex of 1 space per unit. And I see other units that have 2 spaces per unit, and I can think of the townhomes there on Good Pasture Island. I can't remember the name of them, that are right up against Delta on the south side of Good Pasture Island. I had friends that lived there, and it was a constant battle to keep people from parking in their 2 designated spots, because 2 wasn't enough per unit, because it doesn't allow for visitors and everything else. So it's something that needs to be seriously discussed in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Further discussion? And, Mr. Innerfeld, you've done a really good job of answering the questions, not just today, but all along. And thanks for the hard work that you put in. You have helped create a vision for a really livable future in Eugene. And I really thank you for that. Personally, thank you for that. I think I've lived here since 1973 is where I choose to live. Wish my kids chose to live here, all of them. But, one lives in San Francisco, the other teaches in Ohio. And but my third son does live here with his family. And it's just reiterate, it's important that we always pay attention to making it affordable for people to live in the city that they graduated from high school in. So with that, we have before us ordinance number PA 1340 in the matter of co-adopting the City of Eugene 2035 Transportation System Plan for application within the urbanizable area outside the Eugene city limits, amending the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan, amending the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area Transportation Plan, Trans Plan, providing for an effective date and adopting savings and severability clauses. And the applicant is the City of Eugene. We have before us ordinance PA 1340. Commissioner Bozievich.
So I'll move approval of ordinance PA 1340.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bozievich, seconded by Commissioner Lyken. Mr. Mokrahayski, this is an ordinance, requires a roll call vote.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bozievich?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyken?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr?
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Passes 5-0. I didn't know if you wanted me to say that or if you were going to say it, but
I'm relishing this moment. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for all your hard work. Thank you for bringing it to us today, and let's move forward and answer the questions. Thank you. Right on. Okay, then we have one more item on our agenda today before we move into formalities. We have before us, it is a discussion on the Dillard Interchange. And today we have David Reeser with us. Mr. Mokrahayski.
turn it over to Mr. Reeser, who's much more capable of discussing this issue than I am.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Chair Farr and Commissioners. I'd like to report back to you this morning about some recent direction you gave us to add a future planning study looking at the I-5 Dillard interchange, adding that to our work program. My team and I are excited to work on that in the future, and wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the beginning steps that we're taking. So I recently put together a meeting with several key staff, including Tim Elsey, Petra Sheets, our new Assistant Public Works Director, Sarah Means, myself, Becky Taylor, and Commissioner Lyken. And the goal of that meeting was to talk about next steps. And I'd like to review those steps with you now and see if you have any questions or concerns or additional points you'd like to add for us to look at. So some of the key steps we discussed was to first finalize the draft Lane County TSP and have that for adoption. Right now we're aiming for December of this year, so just a few months off. And in the draft TSP, the project list, it currently includes 12 projects that are listed in the Goshen area, and one of those projects identified is for a future study of this interchange. So we're in line. We have that on our project list. And remember with TSP project lists that by having a project on a list in the TSP, then it helps you pursue funding for that. Speaking of funding, we want to look at and consider a combination of different types of funding, including transportation funding, waste management, and also economic development funding sources. And those were all ideas that we discussed pursuing. The TSP study that's identified on the project list has the study listed at approximately at $300,000. So again, that's going to be something we're going to try to work with ODOT on getting some additional funding for. I also want my team to research some of the IAMP requirements. That's the Interchange Area Management Plan requirements, and there are some new ones that could pertain to this interchange. So we'll look at that as well. Also, Commissioner Lykin spoke to us about beginning to speak to folks back in Washington, D.C. As I understand it, Commissioner Lykin and Sarah Means will be traveling back there soon, so it's never really too soon to start speaking to our federal delegation about this project as well as others. And in that regard, we wanted to put together some informational flyers for Commissioner Lykin and Sarah back in DC so that you can share that and this project idea with folks back there. And then lastly, just wanted to talk about a few strategic considerations for you to think about as we move forward with this future study. And part of the, to me, one of the big priorities to consider is as you know, there's so much need out there, even with the transportation bill on the governor's desk right now. But we have this Dillard I-5 interchange we want to look at, but then there's also the 30th Avenue I-5 interchange. And of course, the Coburg interchange that has been part of a regional discussion for a number of years. So that'll be something we want to continue to talk to you about and get your direction and guidance as we understand this Dillard I-5 interchange, but then how that relates to all the other interchanges we're looking for improvements. So those were really the key points, and wanted to be available for any questions or any additional direction you might have for us.
Excellent. This is pretty exciting too. Thank you. Commissioner Lykin. I'm sorry, I did that again.
No, it's thank you, Mr. Chair. So no, I think David, obviously with the meeting we had and I thought brought the steps in a good manner, so I think that the board can get an understanding this is step one, and now along with multi-steps beyond that, but I think there's real potential here, and so I appreciate that. Thank you, David.
Mr. Williams. Okay, anything else today then?
No, that's it. Just wanted to keep you apprised of where we're headed.
Thank you. And you mentioned that Commissioner Lykin and Ms. Means will be presenting this and moving forward with it. So
potentially.
Once again,
we're working on it.
There's going to be a tremendous improvement to Lane County services. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Moving ahead with the agenda. Moving along to County Administration, Mr. Mokahysky, any announcements?
Just a couple things, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank Commissioner Sorensen for recognizing Neil Miller, who is a great guy, and he very quietly does his work really effectively, and we're going to miss him. And we'll obviously go through a process to try to identify a suitable replacement. And I just want to, echo Commissioner Sorensen's comments and thank Neil for his outstanding work for Lane County. I also want to recognize Mr. Kyler, who's here in the audience, and just, boy, we had a heck of a legislative session this year. This is the third session I've been in Lane County for, and from my seat, it's been the best. Both, not only in terms of the outcomes, and we'll talk about the outcomes of the session, and not, they weren't all great, but there's some challenges that we're going to have to reckon with, but really some significant progress on a number of fronts that a number of people contributed to. Commissioners included, we talk about the transportation package and Commissioner Likens' leadership on that statewide. When we look at the, and the impacts of that and the funding that we'll receive here in Lane County going forward, the courthouse project that every commissioner has contributed towards in terms of advocating with our legislators, the presiding judge and the mayor of Eugene and others have all been involved with housing funding. We did really well, about $40 million additional statewide for low-income housing and emergency shelter needs. CCA funding and JR, the Community Corrections Act and Justice Reinvestment Act funding, we played some really solid defense, I think, there. Concerns about erosion of funding for public safety from those. We're actually going to end up better, particularly on the CCA funds, because of the great work that the district attorney and our public safety system have done. There are some, as I mentioned, some things we're going to have to reckon with. And we spoke this morning about having a debriefing with the board. We're looking at late August. We'd like some time for the dust to settle to really, we've been reaching out to various departments and elected offices to give us feedback on all the impacts. We can give the board really a comprehensive overview. So I think we'll have a legislative committee and then bring to the board and have a discussion to celebrate the successes and start talking about next steps in terms of implementation of some things, as well as thinking about challenges from some policy changes that'll trickle down. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mr. Kyler for his work. That in addition to the outcomes that we've had that are not really, I think it's hard to say that one individual has generated all of those outcomes. Mr. Kyler has been really the person that has helped us spearhead and coordinate our efforts. We made a concerted effort in this session, and thanks in large part to Mr. Rickoff and Mr. Kyler's efforts to really make sure that our communication was improved with departments, that we had good two-way communication, that departments were supporting the work that we're doing and that Mr. Kyler was doing in Salem, and that we're communicating with departments, that we're given regular updates, that our legislative committee work and our updates to the boards and our efforts in Salem are focused. So focus and communication really were the two key themes for us in terms of our process. And I just feel really great about the way that this was implemented in this session. And my hat's off to Mr. Kyler for his execution and to all of you commissioners and our departments for the great work that you did on that session. And then finally, I just want to make a note that this week we have our finalist interviews for Health and Human Service Director. As you all know, Alicia Hayes, after 31 years, has decided to take a break. And so she will be retiring in a couple weeks. We're going to recognize her next week at the board meeting. And so think of your favorite Alicia Hayes story, and maybe you can bring that for next week. But we'll have this Thursday morning invite all the commissioners, and we've invited all Health and Human Service employees and stakeholders. But I just say anyone listening, anyone in the public that's interested in meeting the 6 candidates, we'll have 6 candidates for finalists for this position from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Thursday morning. What is it, July 13th at the Charnleton building. Our Health and Human Services building on Charnleton, room 258, which is a second floor conference room. Invite you all to come. It's a meet and greet, meet the candidates, introduce yourself, and then share comments about those individuals. And then we'll have interviews throughout the day. And then we're doing a tour on Friday, and I'll have individual meetings with each of the candidates on Friday, and more process to come after that. So that is all I have, Mr. Chair, unless you have questions for me.
Thank you. Any response to Ms. Mokraski? Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also wanted to, I was going to mention this under Commissioner's business, but being that you brought it up, Steve, I also wanted to give a big thank you to Alex. He was the road runner without a doubt this session. So he had his track shoes on, but I got to tell you, there was a lot of work that had to be done. But I think that the key here, though, was when to push, when not to push. And I got to tell you, Alex, job well done, especially at the courthouse. I mean, there was time you knew, and I think we all knew when to back off. And we did, and it came out with being included in that bonding money was key. And I just want to say thank you very, very much for the work you did on that, and also for, I don't know who's right hand man on transportation, but anyway, Alex did an incredible job monitoring. It seemed like almost every day, phone calls were coming to me either from Alex, Mike Eliason, or Susan Morgan. And I felt like it was almost every single day, because that transportation package was the most fluid thing I think I've ever seen. And the last 72 hours were all over the board. We didn't know where the funding was going to be, how much. We had one number here, one number there, one number there. Finally, in the final tally of it, it ended up being a good win. But between the three of them, his work with Senator Beyer, with Representative McEwen as well, was really tremendous. And I just want to say thank you on really, not just on behalf of Lane County, but on the transportation package, on behalf of AOC. I mean, you were right there working with them. And the key thing I can't say enough is monitoring, because having the information at hand immediately, and then allowed myself to get on the horn with Mike Eliason and Susan and just provide the direction where to go, because they were in the meetings themselves, in the negotiation meetings, Representative AOC. I can't say enough. So I want to say thank you, Alex, on behalf of myself. And also, Steve, I want to give a shout out to Sarah, because she's picked up some of the federal legislation, because there was no way Alex could do it all. There was absolutely no way. And I wanted to say thank you to Sarah for picking up some of the federal side to alleviate some of that, because he may have lost it. He may have lost it completely if he had to continue to do both. So, so great job from our employees here at Lane County. But Alex, big thank you. Just can't say enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan, and thank you for that, Mr. Mokraski. You know, I testified a couple of times in Salem, mostly on Veterans Affairs, but only one time did I testify or speak to anybody regarding the courthouse. And about 10 minutes before I was to provide my testimony, Alex came running in out of breath with amendments for me. He said, "Here." And so I read something intelligent rather than what I was going to read, and it was great. So thank you for that, Alex, and thank you for the work that you did up there. So moving along, Commissioner's business. Any announcements from the Board of Commissioners? Announcements. Commissioner Bozovich.
So I just want to let people know that I'm going to be attending the work group one of the Public Health Modernization Rulemaking Committee tomorrow with the Oregon Health Administration. I was invited to participate by former Commissioner Bobby Green, so I couldn't very well tell him no. So I'm a glutton for punishment. This is the second rulemaking work group I've committed to that's on a statewide basis. So at least gives us a voice, though, in helping try and form those rules that we'll have to live by.
Okay, great. Further announcements, Commissioner Lycan.
Mr. Chair, and this is a personal announcement. So I just wanted to again announce that I have my first daughter-in-law, and we welcomed her to the family over the weekend, and so now they're honeymooning over in Maui, so good for them. But she and my son, it's really interesting. They have been friends for well over a decade, but never dated. And finally began dating a couple years ago, and looked at each other and said, what were we doing all this time? So anyway, they were very, very, very close friends. And so now Very, very excited. Of course, my wife has said, okay, now that you've been married and after the honeymoon, when do I get my grandchildren? I'm not quite pushing them on that one, but leave it to our wives who want grandchildren like yesterday. So we're so happy, and she's an incredible person, and we just want to welcome. Her name is Hannah. It used to be Hannah Lang. Now it's Hannah Lakin officially. So we want to welcome.
Congratulations to you. You're coming to Zach. Excellent. Great photos of the wedding, too.
Oh, thank you.
Further announcements? Then I just have one. There are plenty of things we could talk about, but yesterday I had a chance to attend the ground shaking, not groundbreaking, but the ground shaking of the St. Vincent de Paul Youth Home, which is youth house, excuse me, which is was moved one step closer to opening. It's a house in a former church out Willamette that will be housing formerly homeless young women with a caveat that they will graduate from high school while living there. So it's going to be, I believe, 16 residential beds for the young women. It was a great ceremony, but it's one more step in addressing that Lane County has participated in addressing the housing and homelessness needs in not just Lane County, but in the metropolitan areas of Lane County. So we're moving forward, and we were asked this morning, once again, for the third time, I'm quoting Ms. Koch from this morning. She said that she was questioning why we weren't doing something about homelessness, and I didn't respond to her at the time, but the long list of areas that we are specifically addressing homelessness, which are certainly not addressing every issue surrounding homelessness, but Lane County has been a leader in addressing homelessness and finding different ways to creatively provide housing to people who otherwise would be homeless. So thank you for that. Moving along, any agenda team requests or work session requests? Can we just sit here for 10 minutes then until it's... we have no need, let's see, before we, executive session, review of assignments. Any assignments today, Mr. Mokrohysky?
I didn't catch any, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Unless I missed something.
We didn't toss you any, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Then we have no reason for executive session today. Other business before the Board of County Commissioners. Seeing none, our next scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting is on Tuesday, July 18, 2017, here in Harris Hall, and it will be preceded by a Board of Health meeting next Tuesday. We are adjourned.